My name is Patrick. I'm 31 years old. I used to be a Jehovah's Witness and I'm now shunned.
All right, Patrick. So, how did you come to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place?
I was born in, I'm a third generation. Um, my parents joined when they were teenagers in the 70s, along with their family.
So, when you
Um,
say your parents, oh, so they joined with their family. You said in the 70s. So, was that around 1975?
I think it was around that time or right after. I'm not sure exactly. um, but yeah, so my on my dad's side, their family started going to meetings. They were one of the first families to go to meetings in our area before the congregation got formed.
Oh, wow.
Um, I don't know exactly why they joined. My dad never really talked about his story, so I don't know. Um, and Well, at first it was the whole family, but in the end, it was like half of the family were witnesses, and the other half they never actually joined. On my mom's side, first it was my mom and my grandfather, and then the rest of the family followed, and eventually, like half of the my mom's siblings, they either never got baptized. One of them disassociated like many years ago.
Wow.
um, and my mom always said that she became a witness because she was really disgusted by the world, and she always said that like everyone is like on drugs or smoking or drinking, and she didn't like that, so she felt safe with the witnesses, I guess, because there was none of that. So that was her reason for joining. That's what she told me, and yeah.
I can see that. I mean, I think a lot of people have negative experiences in the world, right? And I mean,
Mhm.
Jehovah's Witnesses brand themselves as being the opposite of that, right? And so,
Yeah.
if you're looking for what seems like stability, that seems like the place to go sometimes.
Yeah, and she was just a teenager. Like she was, I think she got baptized when she was like 18 or 19, but she started going to meetings like younger than that. I don't know exactly when, but yeah, she never actually experienced the world as an adult. So yeah, I guess like she had a bad image of the world, but she didn't know like what it was
Sure.
actually like. So
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. Yeah, there are those things in the world, and if you're around the wrong crowd, or if you're on Facebook too much watching people argue about politics or whatever,
mhm.
it does sometimes get annoying, and you may feel like, oh my goodness, like this really is a tough place to be, because there is a lot of angst in the world at large, but it's just what you're around a lot of times that impacts the way you see these things. Or maybe it's the narrative that she was fed by someone in her family, or the Jehovah's Witnesses who came to her door. We're all
Yeah.
just people, and we can all get frustrated with the way things are, and look for something else.
Yeah,
um
and they were contacted through the door-to-door ministry, so
yeah.
that's how they join. Anyway, so my parents met. They were like going to the Kingdom Hall, both of them. That's where they met, and eventually they got married. And yeah,
Were they in the
I
same
was born.
congregation? uh
Sorry.
did they meet because they were in the same congregation, or did they
Yeah,
just?
yeah,
Oh, really?
they were in my hometown. That's where they grew up, both of
Yeah,
them. So
cool.
yeah,
So they get married, and you end up being born in.
yeah.
So, um, what did that mean to you? You being born in. What was the worldview you were given? How did you see the world being a little Jehovah's Witness and that's all you ever knew?
Yeah, well, everything seemed normal because I didn't know anything else. But obviously, it wasn't very normal. Um, and my parents, like, they weren't like the most spiritual people in the congregation when I was a kid. Um, and my dad was always a workaholic. He was very absent, like literally, or when he was there, like he was just like, I don't know, sitting on the couch and saying nothing and doing nothing. And like he was not, he never showed emotions or anything like that. So it was very hard to feel close to him. I always felt like he was a stranger. And my mom was very strict, very self-righteous, and everything needed to go her way. She also had a lot of anger issues, and she was struggling with depression when I was a kid. Um, and I mean, she got better over the years. But when I was a child, it was really hard because I never knew what to expect from both my parents, actually. Because my dad sometimes, well, he was just saying nothing, and then suddenly he would hit me. Like I didn't know why, because I did something bad, but I didn't know what I did. Like, so it was just like without warning, just bam, and like his huge hands, like he was very like strong, like he's a construction worker. So for a little kid, it was very painful. And or my mom would always like, not always, I mean, when something happened, she would just scream and like just explode. I remember one time, so I have two older brothers, and um, one day my brothers were just having an argument. They were fighting, and they were in the kitchen. And one of my brothers, he took a knife from like a kitchen knife. And he was
Like from the
running
knife
after
block
my
or whatever.
he was running after my other brother, and like I don't think he would have like actually stabbed him, but he was so angry. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I just saw that, and my when my mom came, she took the knife and she pointed it at my brother, and she was screaming like, "You brought the devil in this house!" And like it, it was always about demons, and that was a huge part of our childhood as well. And when she screamed that, her voice was so deep and so scary for me. I was like, I don't know, like 5 to 7 years old. I don't remember exactly. Um, I was just hiding in a corner, like seeing this, and I was terrified. I thought my mom was possessed by a demon, because that like we were always talking about how demons can enter the house for whatever reason, you know. So that was really traumatizing for me as a little boy.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a house there that's full of kind of chaos at times. I'm sure it wasn't always
It
like
wasn't
that,
always like that,
but
and my mom is not a bad person. I just want to
no,
say
yeah,
she always did her best with what she had. And yeah,
yeah.
she had a lot of problems like depression and anger issues. And obviously I have a lot of good memories with my mom, my parents, but yeah, that's just one thing that happened when I was very young, and it
But
left a mark
yeah,
on me.
it's you've got somebody who's depressed, who might have some control issues in ways, and then it when we have control issues in some way, a lot of times our reaction is honestly the opposite. We go out of control to
Mhm.
try to regain control, and it's just a very human thing to do, but it's not a super healthy environment, obviously, for a 5 to 7 year old kid at that time to be growing up in. Every kid wants to feel safe and secure, and when you have parents that are kind of volatile in ways, it is there is some trauma from that, for sure.
Yeah, and I was a very quiet kid, especially like at home. I was not quiet. I was always like screaming, like playing like really. I was really loud. I was a loud kid. But when I was outside of my home, I was very quiet. I actually did not speak to anyone. Like at school, in primary school, I did not have friends. My teachers from grade one, from kindergarten until uh, grade, I don't know, 4 or 5, none of my teachers ever heard my voice. So I never spoke. Um,
What if you were
I
called
was,
on in class? Or
Eh?
did you not ever have a teacher who called on you and tried to make you speak? Because
Oh
I
yeah, but I would just stay there. I would say nothing.
oh wow.
I was terrified of people. And when I was out in public with my mom would always just say, "Oh, he's just shy," and like she would just defend me like that. But it's not that I was shy, as I was just I didn't trust anyone. I was scared of everyone.
Why?
And
Was it just like a shyness, or because they're in the world and you're supposed to be afraid of them? Was it
I
the JW narrative, or was it something else? Is what I'm
I think it's a bit of both because I know that my parents were always telling me like, "Oh, you shouldn't like have friends in school. They are under Satan's control, and so they're not serving Jehovah, and you shouldn't you shouldn't be friends with them." And so I guess that had a part in that. Um, I don't know if it's just because of that. Um, but I also felt like for most of my life, I felt like I couldn't trust myself and I couldn't trust anyone else.
mm.
So there was like I didn't trust myself, so I didn't want to speak up and say anything because I felt like what I was going to say wouldn't be right, or I would make a mistake somehow, and I couldn't trust anyone else neither. So it was like there's no solution in there. Um, and I felt like I wasn't really allowed to have opinions because, well, obviously that's a JW teaching. Like you shouldn't rely on your own understanding and with your own intelligence. Like just listen to the governing body and what
We
they
will tell
say.
you what to think and feel. Don't worry about doing that for yourself.
Yeah. So that already affected me as a kid. But it was a mix of everything. And so for many years, I only spoke to my mom, my two brothers, and one of my cousins. So she was like my closest friend when we were kids. Um, she also grew up as a JW, but her family was like mostly inactive at the time. So I was allowed to see her, but anyways, my mom was never really happy about us seeing each other because she was not active. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
but
always
anyways, so
nice when even as children and in the family, you're kept away from people.
yeah,
That's um, it's really hard. And I know. So were you all about the same age, or?
yeah, we're the same age. And so I did not mention my dad because I did not speak to my dad for many years. So I said earlier because he was so like emotionless and absent, like I considered him as a stranger. So I I was scared of him because the only interactions that we had was suddenly he would hit me and I didn't know why. So like I didn't want to have an interaction with him. I didn't want to talk to him. So I never spoke to him for several years. Like I don't know when I started to speak to him, but like the first several years of my life, um, I did not. So
And let's see, you also didn't speak to authority figures or anyone on the outside,
yeah,
nor
even
did you want to speak your opinion because, well, you might get hit for it or something, right? So, kind of
mhm,
best to be quiet and just not make waves, right?
yeah, and in the Kingdom Hall too, like I didn't have any friends in the congregation. I didn't speak to anyone. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
but like we were still following like the JW stuff, like service, like Saturday morning. We didn't go out every Saturday, but on most Saturdays, um, we went to meetings, most meetings. We rarely missed meetings. But we didn't have like a regular family study like they would encourage families to do. Um, my parents tried many times, but it it would always end up in like a huge fight or like it was just ridiculous. A lot of drama. Like none of us wanted to do it, and we were all trying to force ourselves to do it. And yeah, so I was I was just screaming and like doing whatever, and yeah, and then my dad would hit me and my mom would scream and she would be like, ah, like, you know, always the same thing. So
The
yeah,
classic, the very classic JW family study.
yeah.
But sadly, I mean, really sadly, most people, they always have these examples from the platform of these families with these idyllic, studies, and they build crafts together. And nah,
Mhm.
like most of them were an excuse for the parents to get out their frustrations on the children. And the children were in trouble or whatever. Like it was just this awful thing. Sounds like yours was kind of volatile as well.
Yeah. So, um, so at meetings, I didn't really like meetings as a kid. I thought it was boring. I didn't understand anything. Um, I tried taking notes, like writing every time they would say Jehovah or Jesus, that kind of thing. That it makes no sense to take that kind of note. But anyways, and I would always end up just drawing something, and then my parents would get angry, and they would take me, bring. So, well, we always say the back room, but actually at our Kingdom Hall, it was in the basement. So it was an old Kingdom Hall, like not according to the current standards. um, and there, so the bathrooms were in the basement, and there was this other room. I think it was some kind of storage room because there were like piles of chairs. And that's where like parents would go beat up their kids when they weren't paying attention. So yeah,
If you are at church or anything else and you have to go take your kid into a closet and beat them, something is wrong.
yeah, it was
Very wrong.
I have a lot of yeah, traumatic memories from that room. um I was there, and yeah, so either my mom or my dad. When it was my dad, it was even worse because his huge hands, and yeah, he would just hit me, and I was crying and screaming, and I would see like the door was open, like he didn't even close the door, and I would see like brothers and sisters walk by going to the washroom, and they're looking at me and like screaming, like it
Okay,
was
can we pause there for a second?
yes.
Yes. Isn't that messed up? Like I remember they would almost sometimes giggle or laugh in the congregation when a kid would get taken back and be like, no, 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 and screaming. Like that's not funny. And it's not cool. And there were kids being taken out and just had the fire beat out of them because they drew something on a piece of paper during a 2 hour boring adult meeting. Like that's crazy. And when you just stop and just take that little snapshot of the environment, it just shows it was really messed up. It was warped.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And also as a kid, I wasn't allowed to do what I wanted to do. um, but like when I was really young, I used to watch the Smurfs, and that was my
Oh,
favorite cartoon. And one day, my parents realized that there was magic in there. And it took them a long time to realize that, actually. But yeah, one day she just my dad was there too, but my mom was doing all the talking because so she gathered the whole family, my big brothers too, who also watched the Smurfs sometimes, and she was like, okay, I have something to announce. This is very serious, and from now on no one is allowed to watch the Smurfs in this house. because um because demons, basically. Because if we watch a cartoon with magic, we are inviting demons into our house. And
now at that time, was there the rumor? And I assume you know what rumor I'm
Yeah,
talking
I
about.
know about it now. I didn't know about it back then, but I am wondering now if my mom knew that rumor of the, yeah.
For those who listen who aren't acquainted, the rumor is that someone brought in a stuffed animal Smurf doll, probably got from a secondhand store or a yard sale or something. The Smurf apparently had demons in it and got up in the middle of the meeting and ran out the Kingdom Hall. I can't remember what it said. It was like Satan or something, or hail, I don't know, hail
There are
Satan,
different versions of the
different
story.
versions of it. But this is a story that the Jehovah's Witnesses tell as though it is true, that
Oh
this
yeah.
demon possessed Smurf doll ran out. So like the Smurfs were scandalous when we were kids. I like the Smurfs too. I think I watched them before we were witnesses. And of course that would have had to have gone away when I was like 8 or whatever. And my parents became witnesses because demons, like you
Yeah.
said. So just, but how ridiculous is that?
Yeah. And
A family meeting about the Smurfs.
yeah, it's so stupid. I heard that story as an adult witness, and I actually believed it. Well, it was just fact. It was
What?
presented as fact.
Well, why not?
So I was like, oh
Demons
my
are
gosh.
facts. Jehovah, Jesus, like all this stuff is a fact, right? Like
Yeah,
the Red Sea was parted, the whole earth has been flooded. Like when you can already believe in things,
yeah,
why not that too? Why not Smurfs?
yeah. And I mean, some crazy things happened also. This is not related to my childhood, but later in life, I was at a convention and there was this, so it was in the Dominican Republic and there were no walls in the convention like place. It was just like a roof and it was open. And a random guy came into the hall and he was supposedly demon possessed. That's what everyone said, because he was just walking towards the stage and like screaming like with this demonic voice. and, and I was there. I saw that. I was scared. I was like, oh my god, what's happening? And I don't know like what actually happened. Well, obviously he was not demon possessed. He was just there screaming, um, like making a scene, but whatever. So that kind of thing, yeah, like
You read
we are
into
so
it.
gullible as
Yeah.
witnesses. Like,
Well, once you have an established narrative, it's easy to continue, with the story or to
yeah,
include things in the story or whatever the case may be.
yeah.
Um,
And so again, with the demons, one time I came back from school with the first Harry Potter book, and I knew I was not allowed to have that, and I was hiding it, and my mom found it. Oh boy. Yeah, she was very angry, upset, disappointed. She was like, Patrick, why are you doing this? You know this is wrong. Jehovah's so disappointed in you, like that kind of thing, and like just guilt tripping me like to the max. And I don't remember what happened to the book because it was not my book. I think it belonged to the school, but I'm not sure if I returned it or if my mom burned it or something. I'm not sure what happened. I don't remember that part. Uh, but I know that I was never able to finish reading it.
so how did she know that the book was in the house? Did she sense demons, or did she just happen to stumble across the book?
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what else? So what else kind of happened in your childhood? As you're like
Um,
at the Kingdom Hall. So you said that you all weren't like the most spiritual family or whatever, but like, did
yeah, I
you?
mean, like no one, like my parents were not pioneers. Like my dad was not an elder.
But did you enjoy it on any level? I mean, obviously you didn't enjoy the beatings and things like that. But like, did you make any friends there or feel like you
No,
fit in any
no, not
way?
at all. Not as a child. um, when my cousin would show up at the meeting on, like, she would like they would come like on Sundays sometimes, but they were never there on the midweek meeting. So she was my only friend in the Kingdom Hall, and yeah, so I didn't make friends. I was yeah. I remember at a young age, I was not even a teenager yet. I told my mom that I did not believe it was the truth. And I told her that I did not want to be a witness. I did not want to go to meetings. I made her cry. She was so disappointed. And so I told her, like, how do you know that the Bible is true? And I don't know, remember how old I was, but I'm so surprised that I actually talked about that as a kid. But my mom was like, well, you know, the like such and such verse says that I don't even remember where it is in the Bible, but
It's true
you know
because it
that
says it's true.
the Bible says that the Bible is true.
Mhm.
That's not proof. And I told my mom, that's not proof. If the if the only proof you have that a book is true is inside that book, the book itself telling you that it is true, that makes no sense. Like you need external proof. And anyone could have written that. And my mom was like, she was just crying, and I felt like she emotionally manipulated me because she was just making me feel guilty. She was like, "Oh, it's so sad that you think like that. I want you to be in paradise with us," and you know, like, and crying, and like I felt bad. So I never talked about that again, and I kind of forgot about it. So, but as a kid, as a teenager, I was never really into the whole JW thing. I was just going along with my parents and trying to live a normal life as much as I could, but it was never normal. Um, and so I didn't talk about school, apart from the fact that I didn't talk to
Didn't
anyone.
talk to anybody.
Um, but I was bullied a lot as a kid, as a teenager too. Everyone knew I was a JW. They were bullying me about that because I couldn't celebrate birthdays and holidays and stuff like that. I was bullied about that. I was bullied because I was fat. I was bullied because I spoke like a girl and I was very effeminate. And I'm gay, and like kids were just throwing that at me as an insult. Oh, you're so gay. And they probably didn't even know what it meant. I didn't. It was just an insult. Um, but yeah, so that was my school life. I did not have any friends um, for most of my. Well, there were a few people, but they were not really friends. They were just people that I would hang out with kind of during the like at school, never outside of school, you know.
Or
That
like
was not
somebody to
allowed.
sit with at lunch and stuff like that.
For lunch, oh gosh, I don't.
I know
I
that was always fraught for me. It's like, who are you gonna sit with at lunch?
Oh boy, I
Uh,
think I never sat with anyone where I just sat at random, like, yeah, I don't remember. Gosh, I was so like scared of everything. Like I remember I had to use the microwave, and the microwave was different than the one I had at home, and I didn't know how it worked, and I was so confused, and I didn't talk to anyone, so I was scared to ask for help, and I ended up burning my food. So I was such an awkward kid. Like it's ridiculous
well,
for
but,
so
but
many
but
reasons.
who's teaching you, how to feel a part of other people or a part of a community, or who's teaching you to feel safe or secure? You're in a house that doesn't feel safe or secure.
Mhm.
You're in you go to these meetings that aren't feeling safe or secure because you can get hit there too. So like eventually, yeah, you just kind of shut down and don't trust yourself and don't
Yeah,
trust anybody else. That's like being gaslit. It's just you learn not to trust yourself
yeah,
or anyone
exactly.
else.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was my childhood.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm sure a lot of people can identify with many different parts of that. You know, at times. Um, I'm just going to ask because you mentioned it. So you said, so you're gay. Did you know? You said like you didn't like people would say you're so gay or whatever, but like, did you know that you were? I mean, maybe you didn't have the language for it,
I
but some
Yeah,
people know really early on. Did you always kind of know, or
I always knew, but I didn't like I knew I was different. Um, I didn't know what the word gay meant, or at first, eventually I figured it out.
right,
um,
right,
and of course, I didn't know what sex was when I was a kid. But I was attracted, like I had crushes on boys in my class at a very young age, and that's how it was. And I never, like, I just felt that it was normal, but I could see that most people were not like that. um,
okay. So you could see that. So you could see it felt normal. It was just
yeah, it
you
was
were
normal for
attracted
me,
to.
but
Right,
I could see that, oh, it's not normal for everyone else. Everyone else, they're all like crushing on girls and girls on boys, and
right.
but
But did you know, you know, in those younger years, did you know that like the witnesses didn't approve of that?
I don't remember when exactly I figured that out,
Okay,
but pretty early, yeah.
okay.
Um,
'Cause I was like, that's another level of not feeling
yeah, so
included
that's
in.
another reason to hate myself, basically, like to try
Yeah,
not
yeah,
trust myself.
yeah.
Um, and I remember when I was in third grade, I think, or second grade. I There was this girl that liked me, and I didn't care. And I actually liked her friend who was a boy. I thought he was so cute with his little hair and like, anyways. And I had a huge crush on that boy, and like the girl really wanted to be my girlfriend, whatever that means at that age. And I was like, no. I was just, I was actually, I was not speaking. I was just saying no, like this, like with my head. So uh, she kept asking, and eventually her friend, the boy I liked, he was like, "Oh, come on, just do it, just say yes." And I was like, and I was like, "Okay, yes," just because he asked.
That's kind of like, I don't know, bittersweetly, sadly adorable. I don't
Yeah.
know. You know, at that age, the way kids are
Oh
anyway,
gosh. And
the
it
picture
meant
of
nothing. I
romantic.
mean, like, we were just kids, and
Sure,
I never told my parents about that. And
sure. Uh,
uh, yeah.
so how did things then go as you went into your teenage years? I know you said that like you didn't really believe it so much. So how did things go for you? Because often in your teenage years when baptism comes up, you know, a lot of things change. So how did your teenage years go?
Well, um, I was a teenager when I started like giving like Bible readings at the Kingdom Hall. Um, I was like, compared to others, I was pretty old. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was a teenager when I gave my first talk. Um, I was really shy. I did not enjoy that. And yeah, and at the same time, I became an unbaptized publisher. I started going out, like I started counting my time. I was going out in service in the past, but just not counting anything. But now, as a publisher, I was able to count my time and everything, but I didn't do it more than than before. Yeah, I was just doing what I was supposed to do, I guess. And it didn't really touch my heart or anything back
You're just
then.
following the prescribed path.
Yes, I was just doing what was expected. Um, and I also eventually I realized that everyone. So this is really weird, but well, I mean, most JWs go through that. But I realized that everyone I knew from school or like outside of the congregation, they were all gonna die at Armageddon, and that really freaked me out. And I because so in high school, I had some friends. I was speaking. I was not like
Well, that helps. That helps with the friend making.
yes, I was not as weird as I was when I was a kid. Yeah, middle school and high school, I was speaking. I was still kind of shy and like withdrawn, but I had a few friends and I had a friend group, and yeah, we were just hanging out during lunch break, and um, yeah, but I felt so bad for them because I was like, they're all gonna die. And that's that's ridiculous to think of now, but it yeah, it's really traumatizing for a young person to think that everyone they know will die, like killed by God. um, so yeah, I actually tried to save one girl. Um, yeah, I, I just sounded really weird, but I was like, please, I don't want you to die. I
That's
actually
interesting.
told her that.
That's interesting. So you didn't really believe it,
I was starting to believe it more,
but you still had that fear
but
of the whole end of the world scenario. If
yes,
nothing
I
else.
didn't take it seriously enough to do things like to do everything that I was supposed to do. I was kind of doing it, but not my 100%, you know? And so in a way I was trying to put that away and just live a normal life, but at the same time I had all of these teachings that were inside me and that were making me afraid afraid of losing everyone and of dying myself, because I was terrified. I was convinced that I would die at Armageddon because I knew I was gay and I knew it was not allowed, and even though I never did anything at the time, um, I was convinced like I'm not going to survive the end of the world.
So
And
even if you don't believe it, it shows the power of the fear.
yes,
That fear is very powerful, and fear is quite the motivator for a lot of people.
yeah. And as a teenager I was so well, obviously, I was not allowed to see my friends outside of school. So outside of school, at home, I was just by myself on the computer, like usually playing video games, or I was really into like Japanese stuff. So actually, I started learning Japanese when I was 10 years old, which is really weird, a weird thing to do for a kid. But I really loved, I still do, I really love Japan and everything related to that. So I was just doing my own thing, like studying Japanese, watching anime, Japanese dramas, playing video games,
I just
listening.
have to say that I love that you didn't speak for so long, but you're learning another language.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah, that
that's
that was like
interesting.
that was actually like a running gag in my congregation at some point because well, I love languages and I have learned several languages. And a brother just eventually said like, wow, like you didn't speak for like all of your childhood, and suddenly when you started speaking you were speaking five languages. And like everyone was just like making jokes about that,
It's
so
it's just really interesting when you think about it, and
yeah.
um, I think it's really cool that you ended up going that way and learning more languages and stuff too.
Yeah, and that was kind of my escape from reality, this whole like Japanese thing going on with me on my computer by myself. It was, yeah, it was my way to escape to another world, and I really identified with that culture actually, and I never felt like I was a part of. So I'm from Canada. I never really felt like Canadian culture was my culture that much, um, because well, my the culture I grew up in was the JW culture. not the real Canadian culture. And in my spare time, I was with the Japanese culture, so that's totally different. Um, but now I'm more balanced, like all of the different cultures that I have interacted with. I take a little bit of everything. Yeah. So going back to my teenage years. Uh, okay, so there was something big. So there was this young brother. He was not baptized yet, and I wasn't either. But a boy in our congregation. I fell in love with him. He was straight, and so that was when I was maybe around 16 or something, 15, 16. I had feelings for him for like 4 years, so it was a long time. I never told him.
That's intense as a kid.
Yes, and what happened is that so before I like fell in love with him, I did not have any friends in the Kingdom Hall. My cousin was fully inactive. Her parents too, so I wouldn't see her anymore at the hall. Um, I would still hang out with her, uh, like at her place or at my place, like even if my mom didn't approve. Um, so after the meetings, I would always, so as soon as the meeting ended, I would ask my dad for the key, the car key, and I would just rush outside of the hall, go to the parking lot, sit in the car and wait. And my parents were just like talking to everyone, and and I would wait for like half an hour, or I don't know, it depends. Um, and yeah, I just felt more comfortable in the car instead of being all around like all of these people. I felt really anxious. Um,
Were your
so
parents okay with that?
they let me do it. They
Okay.
never
I'm just
said
kind of
anything.
surprised that they didn't try to force you to,
I
uh,
guess sometimes like they said no, come on, like talk to people, but I was really like stubborn. So I did not want to stay inside the hall. After the meeting was over, I went to the car. And that was it. So eventually, um, that young brother noticed that I was always sitting in my car, well, in my parents' car. Um, and he started coming to see me, and he would knock on the window, and I would just lower the window, and he was like all like so like hyperactive, like so full of energy, and I was just like so calm, and like he's the complete opposite of me. And at first I thought he was so annoying. But he kept coming, and every meeting, and I started looking forward to that. And I felt like he was the first person who actually took an interest in me, and that I felt like I was important to someone, because he would just come to my car and talk to me about random stuff. Like it didn't, most of it didn't make any sense. But I mean, it was nice to feel like I was included, because that had never happened. Uh, well, to that degree. Um, so at the time I felt like he pulled me out of like a dark tunnel. Like I was really, I felt relieved. And that's how I fell in love with him. And because I just wanted attention. I guess I just
you just
wanted.
wanted somebody to show that they cared.
Exactly.
It's
So
nice. It's hard to be the pursuer all the time. It's nice to be the pursued. It's nice to have somebody show that they actually have taken an interest in you. Um,
yeah. And when,
anywhere in life.
yeah, and when that happened, I was so happy and relieved that I had someone, I had a friend in my life, that I became very possessive and toxic. and it was not a good friendship. At first, it was okay, but like I became more and more toxic, and like after a couple of years, um, or I don't know, like three years, or I don't know, um, he pushed me away. He just said he actually like I felt like he was breaking up with me. It was so weird because he sat me down. We were sitting on his bed, and he said, "I think we should not be friends anymore," something like that. So um, I was crushed. Uh, I felt terrible, and but yeah, obviously, I know that I was a terrible friend to him.
Well, yeah, but honestly, isn't that sad? We weren't taught how to be good friends,
I didn't know. Yeah.
and you have so many of us were so desperate for any kind of relationship that felt real that often when we found one, we instantly became way too enmeshed
Yes.
and, like you said, possessive and
And
toxic. And a
yeah,
lot of us did that.
I was jealous of his other friends. It was really bad.
Sure.
And
But when
yeah, so
you're made to feel isolated and alone so much in your life, when you find somebody who's interested in you, you hang on for dear life.
mhm,
It's normal.
yeah, and I still had feelings for him after that. Um, but we we had been fighting a lot. Like we were always fighting, even in service. Like we would go out in service together, and we were fighting in service, like in the car group, and the others were like, "What is going on here?" Like he would hit me, or I would hit him, and like scream at each other. Like it was crazy. Anyways, we stopped talking after that for several years. um, yeah, we eventually became friends again. We're not anymore,
Yeah,
obviously.
I can picture how this is going, but anyway,
Yes. More on that later.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and my mom noticed that I I had feelings for him, um, and she never wanted to admit that she knew I was gay, but she knew, and it was so obvious. And she would always say like these weird things like, "Oh, be careful, you're very close with that friend, like you don't want any like unclean feelings to develop in your heart, and you never know what could happen." And like, what are you talking about, mom? Like that's not how it works. Like I'm not gonna just become gay. I'm either gay or I'm straight. I told her that, and I didn't say I was gay. Obviously, I just said that's not how being gay works. You don't just become gay because of curiosity. Most of the time, because there are
It's
some
like
bi-curious people out there.
there's a lot of men watch men's sports, right? And it's men running around in tight fitting clothes a lot of times or whatever. It doesn't suddenly make all men gay. Like this is so
Exactly.
dumb.
And she caught me watching Glee. I don't know if you're familiar with that show.
I know what it was. I don't think I ever watched it, but I know what it
Okay,
is.
so I was watching Glee in secret, uh, because so there was this gay couple, Kurt and Blaine, and they were my favorite characters in the series. And one time I was watching that in my room, and my mom just randomly came in during a scene where like Kurt and Blaine were kissing or something. Anyways, it was a gay scene. There was no sex, but it was just
Yeah, Glee was on just regular TV and yeah.
yeah, it's not porn or anything.
Yeah.
um, and my mom just watched my screen and looked at me, looked at the screen, and she was like, I don't remember what she said, but something like, "Oh, you shouldn't watch this. Like, you need to be careful. Like if you watch that kind of thing, like bad feelings could grow in your heart, and Satan will take advantage of that." And like always about Satan, always about like, anyways. So yeah, it was really annoying. I was always trying to hide the fact that I was gay, and but like as a teenager, I never had a boyfriend. I never hooked up with anyone, never had sex. So I was following the rules. I did nothing wrong, according to them. But still, it was always like I always felt watched and like nervous that I like people would find out. So
Yeah, I mean that's it's a huge secret, right? And it's not something that, you know, it's one thing if I don't know, I'm just trying to come off the top of my head. If you stole something from a store, okay, as a Jehovah's Witness, you stole something once, you might feel kind of guilty about it, whatever. But like that doesn't mean you're a thief all the time. It's not how you identify a big part of you, whatever. You know, your sexuality, you were gay, and it was a big part of you. And so, you know, it kind of gets to that guilt is I did a bad thing, shame is I am a bad person.
yes,
And you know, this cuts more to who you are
yeah,
because this is a big part of you. And so that's a really tough thing to have to carry around and be a Jehovah's Witness and under the watchful eye of a mother who it sounds like has you figured out and is making these passive aggressive remarks.
yes, very, yes, and yeah. A few times I almost told her because I was so annoyed. And I remember my parents like said homophobic stuff all the time. It was so hurtful. Like I remember I don't I don't know how old I was. I was a teenager or maybe a young adult. Um there so on the news they were talking about a gay pride, and so we saw the parade on TV, like parts of it. It was just for a few seconds, and the news reporter was talking about that, and my dad was there sitting on the couch, and he was watching that, and I was just around, like doing something, not really watching, and my dad just suddenly said something like, oh, those disgusting gays, like the I can't wait for all of them to die. Like Jehovah should just send a fireball in that parade and kill them right now. Like something really hurt, like really hateful and hurtful for me. Like I was right there next to him. Like he didn't know, or he pretended to not know, I don't know, that I was gay. But it was really hard to hear that from my family.
Well, yeah, like my dad was the same way.
Hmm.
And just like, why that? Like, do you, I don't know, they just have such vitriol toward the gay community. It's just, it goes above and beyond the way they feel about a lot of other things, other than like false religious, you know, churches and stuff. They've got it out for them too. But just that's just so hateful and violent.
Yeah.
Why do you have so much hate in your heart for somebody else? I just
Mm,
don't get it.
mm,
Um, I mean, I know, I'm sure I probably had some of those feelings to some extent because I grew up in it, and my dad was extremely homophobic, just a hater in every way, and I'm sure I had some of that, but I don't know, just the like. I wish that the fireballs would come and kill them all.
oh, it was just
What
ridiculous,
the
so
hell?
dramatic. Like,
Why so much hate?
yeah, and my dad never talks. Like he's so like quiet all the time, and then suddenly this like what?
Well, like, okay, so if there was a story on about an actor who cheated on his wife, like I don't remember my dad ever being like, "Oh, those fucking adulterers! I can't wait till they get theirs." Like there was none of that.
No, yeah, yeah.
Why that? Why is that so? I don't know. The
I
focus
think
on that is weird.
yeah, and now thinking back, I'm guessing that in a way, like they both knew that I was gay, and they were trying to show me that it was wrong somehow, but that's
Hey,
not how you do
nobody
it.
Nobody in my family was gay, and my dad was brutal. So,
Yeah, I don't know. There's no
it's
excuse. I mean,
no,
that's just wrong. And
no, there's just a hatred there. And I'm sure on some measure it makes them feel better about themselves because, like they feel guilt or shame about things they've done in their life in this cult in which they're trying to be perfect so that they can maybe earn a drop of their God's love. So they're trying so hard. So, hey, at least I'm better than them. And I think that that's what a lot
oh
of
yeah,
it
that was a
is.
big thing. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
feeling better than
Yeah.
whatever group of people.
Yeah, feeling
um,
special in some way because you feel like such a pile of utter garbage
yeah,
because the cult makes you feel so bad about yourself.
yeah,
But it's still frustrating, and I'm so sorry that you had to experience that.
yeah. And it
That's
happened many times, like in many different situations. There was always like when it would come up, it was always like really hateful comments, and I just had to sit there and shut up, say nothing because I didn't want to out myself. um, but yeah, it was not great.
no.
Um, oh, and so again about my cousin. So it's funny because when we were teenagers, so my cousin was really like out of everything JW, and she had a lot of friends, and most of her friends were gay for some reason, and I always liked going to like I would like after school. So my school would finish half an hour earlier than her school, and so when we were in high school, and I would often like go to her school to see her after my school was over in the afternoon. So, and I would see her friends and like all of these gay guys like that were openly gay and like so free, and I felt like wow, like I was really like jealous. I was really envious of them. I really like I felt like I was stuck. I couldn't be myself and they could, and that was really nice, and I wanted to be their friends, but I was kind of awkward, and but I was hanging out with my cousin and sometimes they would hang out with us. Um and yeah, so I always felt really good when I was around them, but at the same time, I felt really guilty. So there was also the guilt, the huge guilt of like, I'm with worldly people, I'm with openly gay people. That's like the worst thing. And I'm with my cousin who is now who has not come to the meetings in several years and who's not interested in coming back. And I know that everyone disapproves of this, but I still want to be her friend and I still want to hang out with her gay friends. But so, it was really, it was, I don't know, I felt really torn. And when I would come back home, like it didn't happen very often that I hung out with them. But the few times that I did, when I would come back home, my mom was always there like with her really disappointed look in her eyes and like so what happened and like wanted details, and like I would just tell her and I tried to act normal and, but yeah, it was I felt really bad especially when confronting my mom afterwards. And
Can we say actually she confronted you? But anyway.
yeah, basically. And eventually my mom actually she forced me to block my cousin on back then we were chatting on MSN Messenger. I
Okay.
feel really old saying that. But yeah, so we were chatting there every day all the time, and my mom asked me to block her, and I didn't want to, and I blocked her in front of my mom, and then my mom left, and I unblocked her. And then we kept talking, but we had some kind of code, like when my mom was nearby, I would write something and I would close everything. So it was like the secret conversation, like it was not trying to hide porn, it was trying to hide my conversation with my cousin.
That's so crazy when you
Like,
think
oh,
about
I
it.
need to close everything quick. uh,
You
so
shouldn't have to be like a spy in your
oh,
own
it's
house.
so stupid, like oh my gosh. But yeah, and eventually my mom, like I think like 1 or 2 years later, she figured out that I had never blocked her, and she was really annoyed. Yeah.
Did she come
Anyway,
down on you for it?
eh?
Did when she figured it out, did she come down on you for it? Or did she
I don't
wa
remember
was it
what
just that general, like, feeling of disappointment and how you had,
always that. There was
failed
always
her?
that in everything. My mom was very she would show it when she did not approve of something. Um, like my hairstyle. I wanted to grow my hair longer and I couldn't. And um well, if my hair looked a little bit too long or something, like she would just have this disapproval like in her eyes, like looking at me like I'm some kind of like, I don't know, like a really bad person. Or like if I would like spend 3 days without shaving, like I had just a little bit of like beard, just a little bit, like
I mean,
um,
everybody knows that what makes the character of a person is, do you talk to your cousin? How long is your hair? And do you have facial hair? Like
yeah,
these are the three, this is the holy trinity of what makes you a terrible person, as if you have those three things in your life.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Or
so
it,
absurd.
so also like I always I always put chapstick on because my lips get really dry really easily. And my parent both my parents, my dad too, like they would freak out every time I did that. They thought, oh, boys aren't supposed to do that. And I'm like, I'm not gonna let my lips crack just to please you. Like, of course boys do that.
I have chapstick sticks
I
right
have
here.
two right here.
I'll probably put it on several times during the course of this conversation. Uh, it's the winter, and I'm not a moron.
like before I was getting ready to go out in service, for example, and as a young adult after I graduated school, and I would my parents would just look at me to inspect me. Oh, your lips are a little bit too shiny, like, and I had to wipe some of it off. It was just ridiculous. But yeah, that happened a lot.
It makes me think. Remember that scripture they used to always they love to say, like you strain out the gnat and gulp down the camel.
Yeah.
Like they're picking at the sheen of chapstick on your lips. Like that's what they care about. Like
Oh,
what the
man,
heck?
yeah. It was always about like you need to look straight. Like if you do something, like if I would like walk in a certain way or move in a certain way, like they would be like, "Oh, don't do that. That looks really bad. You shouldn't do that. I hope you're not doing that in public." I'm like, "No, mom." But like what the hell? Like
They're
I
so
can't control that.
Jehovah's Witnesses are entirely obsessed with appearance.
Yes.
And so that's good. And then they've got to control your appearance
Yeah.
because they're afraid your appearance, what they're really afraid of is that your appearance reflects on them.
Yes.
And they don't want to be seen a certain way.
Yeah. And so going back, I think so eventually I got baptized. I didn't talk about that. So I was 17 when I asked the elders to get baptized. Um, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. It was just the thing I was supposed to do. If you're 18 and still not baptized, then what's wrong with you? So, um, yeah. So I felt a lot of pressure from my parents. My oldest brother also. Uh, One time I was visiting him, and he just said, "So when are you getting baptized?" I'm like, "I don't know," and he's like, "Well, are you planning on leaving the truth?" I'm like, "No, of course not." And then he's like, "Well, get baptized." I'm like, "Okay."
And isn't that often is put forth as the reasoning? It really
Yeah,
is.
I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll do it because that's what I'm supposed to do. That's the next step, you know?"
Why
And
would you not do it?
yeah, don't wait until you find out the truth about this cult. uh, Gosh, and the elders were also like encouraging me or pushing me to get baptized.
Oh,
So
of course they were. You're about to be an adult.
yeah, and so I was actually having nightmares at the time about Armageddon, and I was terrified of getting killed, as I said earlier. Um, and I remember this one time I had a dream. It was a bit different than usual. I was actually dying in the dream, but it was so peaceful, and I just felt myself fade away. And suddenly, in the dream, I woke up in the new world. I was in paradise, and everything was so beautiful and wonderful. And I felt like that dream was Jehovah telling me that there was still hope for me.
Because you have a narrative and now
Yeah,
you're reading into it. Right.
yeah. So so I was like, okay, well, yes, I'm gay, but I have never done anything wrong, and so I should be okay. um, and I should get baptized because if I'm not baptized, then I'm gonna die at Armageddon. So I asked the elders, okay, I'm ready to get baptized. Um, and they were like, oh, actually, can you wait until the next convention because we're kind of busy these days because we were building the new Kingdom Hall. Um, so I had to wait.
Jehovah will understand.
Yeah, makes no sense.
Remember, he reads hearts, but he can also tell if you've been dunked in water, and that somehow matters. But also, we're building a kingdom all here. Your salvation does not matter.
Exactly. So I had to wait. So I asked it. I asked to get baptized in the convention, the summer convention, and we were building the hall in the summer. So they said no. So I ended up getting baptized in September. So a few months later. Uh, so the baptism questions, I I really I felt like it was so stupid because the answers are all written right there, like under the question. Like there's a question and there's the answer. You just have to say it in your own words. And the
Almost like you're
scriptures.
being brainwashed and programmed with certain responses.
Yeah, I was like, this is not a test. Like this is not a test to see if I know everything. The answers are all there. I can just literally read what's written there or paraphrase it, and it's fine. Like I passed the test. Like what's the point of this? But I did it, and we got through all the questions. I think the last question was, "Did you dedicate your life to Jehovah in prayer?" I did not know what that meant. So I said, "Yeah," and they're like, "Okay."
Of
So
course.
you're getting baptized. I'm like, okay, great. And I did not dedicate my life to Jehovah in prayer. I did
But
not do that.
so why didn't the
Um,
Holy Spirit let them know that?
exactly. Like they're supposed to be directed by Holy Spirit. They're supposed
Yeah,
to know if there's something wrong.
yeah, they should be able
And
to tell.
they were actually they were answering some of the questions for me. like, have you like stopped practicing sin or whatever, like a question like that. And I didn't have time to answer. And the elder is like, well, obviously you have not sinned because you're just a kid. Like, so I'm like, okay. And well, I'm not going to tell you I'm gay then.
It's such a joke, isn't it?
It's
It's
ridiculous.
just such a farce.
Yeah. They, they just wanted me to like be baptized and be stuck. So
Mhm.
that's what happened. So I got baptized. I had just turned 18 actually, because like it got delayed till September, and I was born in August. So I was supposed to be 17, but I ended up getting baptized at 18. And in the pool, something happened. It was just my imagination, but um, well, first of all, so when we were standing, and the guy on the stage, he's like asking the two questions, and we have to scream yes. Like, I didn't even hear what he was asking. I was so nervous, so I just said yes at the same time as everyone else. I didn't know what I was saying yes to. Um, and then we went to the pool, and um, the elder who baptized me, um, I was so nervous because I I felt so disgusting because I was fat, and I was wearing this t-shirt, and when the t-shirt gets wet, it's really like stuck to your skin, and everything, all of my fat like was like just there for everyone to see, and everyone was taking pictures and videos, and I felt so awkward. Um, but so the elder, he was like positioning my hands and whatever to like uh, before like putting me in the water. And he just he quickly said, okay, have a little thought for Jehovah. Like, he just said that, and then and then whew, I was like plunged into the water, like. And if like I was not expecting it to be so quick. So like I felt like I did not have control of my body. I was like falling backwards into the water, and then all the bubbles, like the sound of the bubbles, and then the peacefulness of like being underwater, like when outside there's like everyone talking super loudly, and then suddenly it was so quiet. I felt so peaceful. And because he just said like have a little thought for Jehovah, I imagined Jehovah looking down at me, and I was like, oh my God, like I'm like, oh my God, this is so special. And then I came out of the water, and like everyone was clapping, and it was like everyone was happy. And then I ran to the changing room, trying to hide my wet t-shirt. Um, so I felt like it was something really special. And that was the first time that I felt like I was actually like really starting to believe in all of this the day I got baptized.
It's just so interesting because you can see that you made it special.
Yeah.
Because I got baptized, and so fun fact, I hate to go underwater. I hate water in my face, and so when I got dunked, my whole thing was like, crap, I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. It wasn't about getting baptized. I just didn't want to go under the water. I don't like to go underwater. And so he dunked me, and I came up, and I didn't have any of that magic you had, right? Because my mind was just in a different place, right? And so you see how it's your perception that makes the magic happen, or whatever. And so so now you have gotten baptized, and you've had basically the spirit come down like a dove upon you.
Yeah.
You've had this magical moment, but then that can get romanticized, and it becomes this story, and it's this thing.
Yeah.
So how where did that lead you?
Well, everyone was so proud of me, and
Yeah.
I finally felt included in the congregation. And I had graduated high school, so I was not like I was not in the world anymore. So the only people I was seeing were like witnesses. And from then on, elders were always encouraging me to do more, to reach out, you know. So, um, well, after high school, I was not allowed to go to college. My cousin started college, and I really wanted to go and be in the same college with her. But my parents didn't want me to, of course. So I ended up doing like a 1 year and a half course in graphic design. My parents allowed me to do that because it was useful because I could get into Bethel and design watchtowers. um, so I did that. Um, and but after I graduated, so it was just a year and a half. It was pretty short. Um, After I graduated, that I couldn't find a job in that field, and I kind of gave up on the idea. I wasn't really interested in working in that. So and the elders were like pushing me to try auxiliary pioneering while I was looking for a job. So I did that, and I did it for 6 months. And after that, I became a regular pioneer. um, and I pioneered for 6 years. And soon after I started pioneering, I became a ministerial servant. I did that for 5 years. Um, and that was the time when I started to really indoctrinate myself fully. So as I said before, I was never really fully in. But at the time after graduating, I was fully in. I was fully indoctrinated. I believed all of it, and I was going to give my 100% because that's what I should do. Because if you believe that is the truth, if you truly believe it, of course you're going to do everything in your power to save everyone from dying and to serve Jehovah fully. You're going to do it. If you're not doing that, then you're lying to yourself and you don't truly believe it. you
And
know
can we say that, by that definition, most Jehovah's Witnesses don't really truly believe it. They don't
exactly.
do everything they can.
I never understood that because I could see most witnesses, they were like supposedly believers, and they were very strict on certain things that didn't matter. And but they were never going out in service. They were never like commenting at meetings. They were not progressing spiritually. They were not reaching out for more privileges. They were not doing any of that stuff. And I could not understand why, because I was like, well, there's something wrong with them. So I did
If
that
the
fully.
Yeah, if
And
the world's on fire, why are you sitting around watching TV? You need to
exactly,
go save somebody.
exactly. So I became really intense. And I was also trying to compensate because I was gay, and I felt like I needed to do more because there was this flaw inside of me. So I needed to be more perfect than everyone else. um, yeah. And yeah, and then from then on, I did not have any contact with anyone who was not a witness. And I actually stopped talking to my cousin because I felt like she was not a good influence for me. And so I bought into the whole thing that my mom had been trying to make me believe for many years. I eventually believed it, and we stopped talking for several years. Um, yeah, so in a way, I felt like I was better than everyone else in the world because I knew the truth. I was one of the few that was going to be saved at Armageddon, and but at the same time, I felt like I was worthless because no matter what I did, it was never enough. And I could never truly compensate for being gay. That was never going to go away. And I couldn't do anything about it. And so I felt worthless and better than anyone else at the same time. So it's really weird, but I guess that's a common feeling for JWs.
Oh yeah, that's extremely common. Um, you have the added aspect there of your sexuality, but yeah, most people feel special because they're Jehovah's Witnesses and they wear that with pride. And I'm one of Jehovah's chosen people. But if you really start talking to them, yeah, they don't feel very secure. And what's that scripture that basically says, like, even if you do everything in the world correct, probably you may be concealed in the day of Jehovah's
Oh
great
yeah.
anger.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you can do everything right, and he might not murder you.
Yeah, I remember that scripture. I always felt it was so weird. Like, why probably? That's wrong. Like, what? You're not even sure that you're gonna get saved? Like, what? Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, late teens, early 20s, I was like I basically became a JW superstar. So
Isn't that a play or a movie? JW Superstar.
uh, it's weird, but yeah. And people were just like so like shocked because like people that saw me as a kid, because that little kid that was so shy and terrified of everyone, who did not speak for several years, suddenly he was now taking the lead in the congregation, giving talks, like taking the lead in service, like doing all of these things. Like everyone was like, and they, of course, they were always like praising Jehovah about it. They were like, "Oh, you see what Jehovah can do when you just let him like uh, take control of your life."
And you let him mold you or whatever the
Yes,
case,
let him mold you. So yeah,
like clay in the potter's hands.
yes. Oh gosh, I hated that.
I'm
Uh,
just triggering people at this point.
I always thought that that scripture was really weird because like it, and especially the part, I don't know if it's in the same part, but when like the Bible said that Jehovah made some for like a good use and some for like for just to be thrown away or something, like why did he make them like that?
Because free will, Patrick. Because free will.
Oh gosh,
Uh-huh.
it didn't make sense anyways. um so yeah, I had a lot of privileges, and of course, because I study graphic design, the elders were like, "Oh my gosh, actually, we need to redo all of our territory cards because they're they're so old. So please, Patrick, you're the only one with the skills to do that. Can you do it?" So I did that, for free, of course. I was counting my time as service time, so it was it was counted as pioneer hours. So I was happy to do it at the time. Um, so I did that. We had like several hundred, like maybe, I don't know, 400 territories or something. It was a huge territory because it's in the countryside. Anyways, so I had to do all of that on the computer and print it out and give it to the elders. Eventually, I think I became the territory servant for like a while, like just like a few months. Um, but anyways, I was
If they made
also
him, you ought to be the territory servant.
at first I was not. So I was reporting to the territory servant, but I was just in charge of making the cards, the new cards. And yeah, eventually they were like, okay, like you've made all the our territories, so we might as well give you the job. So just become our new territory servant. And then like 2, 3 months later, I moved out. So, so I didn't do that for a long time. I was also like taking, like, I was one of the brothers on the sound system. I was not in charge of the whole thing, but, and I had a lot of talks and meeting parts, and started giving public talks as well. I did some shepherding visits also, shepherding calls. I don't remember what they're called anyway.
Shepherding calls is what we said, but
Yeah. And so I also, because I love languages, so I started learning Haitian Creole because there were a lot of Haitians in the area. And I started giving public talks in Haitian Creole in a Haitian Creole group in a city nearby. Um, so yeah, I was really involved in a lot of things, and I loved service. So when I was a kid, I hated it, but as an adult, it was really like I really loved it, and um, I realized that most JWs don't like service, but I was one of the few. Um,
what did you like about it?
I felt like I was helping people. I felt
You're
like I
doing
was doing
something.
something important. I was not, but I felt like I was. And but my favorite thing was preaching to immigrants, so people who were from other countries, and so to speak their language, so either Creole or Spanish. Um, I found some random like Japanese people too, and like I had no idea that Japanese people lived here, but in a small village nearby, I found one Japanese woman there. She was so shocked to see that I could speak Japanese. But yeah, it was really fun. She was not interested, but she was friendly, and but she
I'm
was really,
sure it just made her feel good to hear someone speak in her, her native tongue.
yeah. And that was what I loved about service. So, and also like spending time with friends from the congregation in the car and like driving to places, and like we it is a beautiful area here. Like there's a lot of nature, and it is very beautiful, especially in autumn, like with the colorful leaves and everything. Even in winter, it's beautiful, or anytime. It's always, well, yeah. In If you go out of the main the big town, then it's very beautiful outside any time of the year. So I really loved like driving around and like, yeah, meeting people. And I had a lot of Bible studies. I had like around 15 at some point.
Whoa.
Most of them
15.
were immigrants, and they just they were not really interested. They just liked that I spoke their language. Like most of them were Haitian. I was studying with a few African guys too. They were they spoke French. Um, and I visited a few Latinos, so Spanish.
So how
Anyway,
many languages did you slash do you speak?
like French, English, Haitian Creole. I am fluent in those three. I'm
And
pretty good
Spanish?
at Spanish. I can have like normal conversations in Spanish. Sometimes I need to look some words up. Um, Japanese, I've been learning for most of my life, but I'm still not fluent because I don't get to practice that much. But I got back into it recently, so I'm still working on that. But I can like I have been to Japan a few times, and I can like function in like all in Japanese when I'm there. So with a lot of gestures as well, because so so yeah, these five languages, and there's Korean. I know a little bit. I can read and write Korean. I know a few basic things, but not enough to have like real conversations. um,
You
but
know,
I have done service in all of these languages, and I was the guy who would just go like in the old city, um, where all the tourists are, and I would have like piles of tracts and like so many languages, and I would just like give it to everyone, to all the tourists, and I would like try to like I would say hello or have a conversation with them in their language, and that was the kind of pioneer I was. I would even do that like when I was not in service. I remember I was just hanging out with some brothers. We were walking around, and we were not dressed as witnesses. Like we were not out in service. We were just hanging out. And I was still giving tracts to everyone. I was like, well, obviously, like we're here. I can speak their language. Who knows if they will ever be contacted by witnesses in their own country? This is the only chance. Like, if I don't do this, I'm responsible for their death. Like, I was so dramatic. So I was like,
Blood guilty.
to give them
Yeah.
tracks. Like, what do you think? Like, so that's what. Yeah, I was really an uber dub, as some people
Yeah.
say.
But those languages also gave you new challenges, new purpose. They made you feel a part of something
Yeah,
bigger each time that you expanded.
yeah,
Much more than just the average person speaking their average one language to the same people with the same message. You were making it exciting and adventurous.
yes, definitely. Yeah, because if I had done like the same thing that everyone else in my congregation was doing, I would have been so bored, and I would never have taken it seriously. Or I don't know, because I was making it exciting, and yeah, and people admired me for that. They were always like talking about me and like, oh wow, Patrick, like he's oh like I was like a
JW
hero. I was
Superstar.
everyone's hero.
I'm going to title your episode JW Superstar.
Oh gosh. But literally like, and I was traveling a lot, and within Canada and also to other countries, and so I would go to like I loved going to big cities like Toronto, Montreal. um, I would visit like a lot of different congregations there in different languages, and I was even like on the same weekend I could go to four different meetings. It was the same meeting, but in four different languages, one after the other, like two on Saturday and two on Sunday, for example. And I would tell people that, and they were like, "Oh my god, like what? Like you're so crazy." They were also JWs, but they would never do something like that. But I was like, "Well, how else am I going to see everyone? Like I need to see my friends because I met so many people traveling, and then when I was going back to these places, I just managed my time to be able to see everyone and to be able to experience a meeting in whatever language and give comments in that language. And it was a way for me to practice, and it was great. And I would go out in service with some of these congregations. And so I was visiting like a Japanese congregation in Toronto, some English congregations in Toronto as well, Spanish, um, French, Haitian Creole, Hindi. I also went to the Hindi congregation. I don't speak Hindi, but I have commented in Hindi a few
Because
times.
why not?
Yeah, because I knew people from that congregation. So
Well, you could see, like, so. Whereas there were some people who were like, I can't believe you're going to four meetings in one weekend, and you were like, how else am I going to see all my friends? I bet you felt special too, just going into those different congregations. I assumed that there was a form of love bombing
oh,
there, or
of course, yeah.
they
I
really
was
enjoyed seeing
totally
you.
yeah, I was completely addicted to the love bombing.
Yeah.
Like, of course, when you think of my childhood, how I felt isolated from everyone, I was so lonely and empty inside. And then I was popular, and everyone knew me everywhere. Like, and everyone admired me. Everyone wanted to be like me. And I was cited as an example everywhere I went. And I got addicted to that. The attention, the love bombing, even if it was not real love, but still, it felt amazing. And
Sure, in a
I,
world where everyone's the same,
yeah,
The only way to stand out is to be different, and you were different for a good reason, as they would see it,
Yeah.
and that was going to get you praise and some consideration that otherwise you would have never had.
Yeah. So,
Take it from there.
um, I also traveled to other countries. As I said, I went to Japan twice. I went to South Korea, always as a JW. So I was always visiting JW families, staying with them. Um, I visited Bethel like everywhere I went. I went to so many different Bethels. It was always the same thing, but somehow I was always so excited to go there. Um, and the thing is, for a gay JW, Bethel is like paradise because like all the single brothers who don't plan on getting married, in other words, who are closeted gays, they end up at Bethel. um, so yeah, I whenever I would go to Bethel, I would always like, okay, like he's obviously gay, him too, him too, him too. Like my gaydar would go like crazy, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I lived here. And
You had your chance with the graphic design.
yeah, but I actually I got a Bethel application at some point, and I never filled it because I was so ashamed because there was one question on the application. I think they were asking, have you ever looked at porn or something like that? And I was like, oh my gosh, well, I can't lie. I can't say no, but if I say yes, they're not going to accept me and I'm going to be shamed. Like, I'm going to feel so ashamed that they know. So I'm just gonna give up on the idea. I'm never gonna go to Bethel. I'm never gonna apply. So that's what happened. Um, yeah. So so whenever I traveled, I was always going out in service. I didn't do much touristy stuff, like a little bit, but I was
You had
going
people to
there.
save, and you truly believed that.
Yeah, I was going there to visit the congregations, the brothers and sisters, to practice the language, to help them in service, to encourage them. That was my goal when I was traveling. So that's what I did. And we ended up going to some nice places as well. And I have a lot of nice experiences, nice memories, even though I was a JW when I was traveling to all these places, but still, it was really nice. And another country, Dominican Republic, I ended up moving there eventually. I also went to Israel and Egypt on a Bible tour with like 70 or 80 like JWs. Um, anyways, so yeah. Oh, one thing I want to mention. There was a forum for gay JWs online. Um, it was it was not for ex-JWs. It was for practicing JWs, believing JWs. Um, but it was a place to get encouragement. Um, it used to be called Witnesses Plus or something like that. Now it eventually they changed the name and they call it JWHC. So I'm sure some people are familiar with it.
It still
I
exists.
sorry.
Does it still exist? You're saying?
I think so. I'm not a member anymore. Obviously, I got kicked
Right.
out. um, but yeah, it was a place to get encouragement to stay faithful, even though we have this thorn in the flesh, as they say. Um, so it was a really good place for me because I felt like other people understood what I was going through, and I could talk about my feelings. And there was also some like biblical discussions, like about Sodom, like actually, according to Bible scholars, the sin of Sodom was not homosexuality, but was a lack of hospitality. And we discussed that, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, and I thought, oh my gosh, the governing body is does not understand correctly the Bible, and eventually Jehovah will give them new light as he does. And eventually it's going to be okay to be gay as a JW. That's what I believed. So I just need to be patient until then. Um,
Jehovah's organization is just wrong right now.
yeah, but I mean, I knew
They'll
they
come
had been
around.
wrong about a lot of things. They changed their teachings
Yeah,
many
yeah,
times,
yeah.
and for me that was okay. This new light, right? So
It's okay to hurt people and destroy lives as long as you clear it up later.
yeah.
Why not?
Oh gosh. So yeah, and at the time I felt like, well, I always felt like this was normal for me, even as a kid, but I felt like there was nothing wrong with being gay. Like homosexuality was not wrong. I thought, well, it's the same as heterosexuality. If I find a nice brother and we start dating and we get married and that's it, that's fine. We can serve Jehovah together. That's how I felt. But for some reason, there's this confusion around this topic, and eventually it's going to be cleared out and it's going to be okay. And eventually I'll get married to a nice brother and we'll serve Jehovah together. That was my plan. um, yeah. And actually, people on that forum, some of them were trans, and um, they they were saying that in the new world, they believe that, like for example, if uh, the person was in a male body but they felt female, then in the new world, Jehovah would transform them and make them female, and vice versa. So, and everyone agreed on that on the forum. So I was like, well, obviously, like, if he gives you what you want, why wouldn't he give me what I want? I'm not trans, I'm just gay, but I want a husband, and Jehovah's going to give me one.
Jehovah's going to fulfill the desire of every living thing.
Yeah. So so I was active on this forum for several years, throughout my JW life. It was a nice place. I really enjoyed it. I met some people in real life, that were on there. So yeah. Um, Moving on to something else. So as I mentioned that I moved to the Dominican Republic. So after spending a month there on a trip, a service trip, just to help out a congregation, new congregation in need, I instantly felt like that was my home, and I made quick friends with the congregation, and I love the weather. It's warmer.
Big
I
difference from Canada to the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, very different. So yeah, and the food was great, and so I just fell in love with the place, and I was like, well, this is it. This is where I should be. Like they need help, they need me, and I can help them. So I'm gonna move there. So I went back home and I started preparing everything, getting a visa, and doing that, and then I started telling everyone that I was moving, and everyone was so disappointed because everyone wanted me to move to their congregation. So they were like, "Oh, I thought you were planning to move with us. We need help too." Everyone said the same thing. Like, so I was like, "Well, I feel like I can do more good in another country." So
Everybody wants a piece of Patrick, but there's only so much Patrick to go around. You
yeah,
know,
I
and
mean,
and you were going to take your talents south to the Dominican Republic.
yeah. I
Uh,
always felt like I wish I could like just clone myself or something and be everywhere at the same time. That was my biggest problem. Um, Anyways, so I ended up serving in the Haitian Creole congregation down there. It's a Spanish-speaking country, but I was in the Haitian congregation. I also attended the Spanish meetings just for fun. And there was an ASL group, um, that I also attended. So I was a part of three groups or
you
congregations.
didn't throw that one out there earlier, so do you know ASL as well?
I started learning it.
Just got into it.
No, and I forgot everything I learned actually.
Gotcha.
Um, I gave up after a few months because I was like, I can't be useful, like fully useful in the Creole congregation if I'm just going everywhere like that. So I need to focus on one thing. So I stopped going to the Spanish as well eventually. But I had friends in all of these congregations in this town. It was a small town by the beach. Like one side of the town there's the beach, and the other side there's the mountains and the jungle. So it was a really nice place. And I had my little scooter. I was driving around, and it was it was really nice. So I moved there in 2013, and I stayed there until 2016 when I first got this fellowship. um, so yeah, they gave me a lot of work there. Of course, they did not have any territory cards, so they were like, "Oh, I heard that you made the territory cards in your home congregation, so can you do the same here?" So I did it. But the difference was, since it's a foreign language congregation, um, I had to figure out where the Haitians lived in the territory. So I had to drive around on my scooter and figure out where the Haitians are, and then put a little a little cross on the map. Um, so it was a lot of hard work, but I really enjoyed it. I felt useful, and I love driving around on a tropical island, obviously.
Meeting just
Um,
all kinds of people as you do. I'm sure you enjoyed
yeah,
that.
and the people there are just amazing. They're so welcoming and so generous. And I would often get invited for like a meal by just random people out in service, like, "Oh, I'm cooking something, please stay with us, and we can talk about the Bible while I'm finishing to cook this, and then we can eat together." And or they would give me stuff from their garden, like lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. Like it was a really nice experience. I felt like, the kind of stories that you would read in the yearbooks back when they used to publish that. um I felt like I was living that kind of life, and I truly felt like that was the best life ever. Like, and I would post a lot of pictures on Instagram with the hashtag best life ever and hashtag JW, and I had a lot of JWs following me, um, even people I didn't know. So, anyways, that was my life. It was really nice at the time. Um, I gave a lot of public talks very often because we didn't have a lot of brothers there. And I worked a little bit online, but just the bare minimum just to survive. Like, work was not my focus. I was focused on like serving Jehovah in the congregation. and um and for me, service was more than preaching to them, but it was also helping them in real ways. So I know a lot of brothers down there, they used to say, well, they probably still say the same thing. They would say to me like, "Oh, like be careful because some people, they're not really interested. They just want to have a white friend because they think you're rich or something, and they want to take advantage of you." So I'm like, okay, well, I'm here to help. So if I see someone suffering, I'm not gonna like not do anything if it's in my power to help. So I would often, like with my Bible studies, we would study and they didn't have anything to eat that night. So I would go with them to the market. I would buy some food for them, and they would cook. We would eat it together and we would just hang out. And so that's what I would do. And I would still count my time as service. But I would always go do Bible studies by myself because I always felt like the if I was with someone else, with another brother, they were judging me for doing that. And like, "Oh, you're wasting your time. Like, they're not really interested, and they just want you to
Just
pay
trying to
for
take
their food."
advantage of you.
yeah, so I would just go by myself because that's what I wanted to do. So yeah, um, and yeah, so that was my life in the Dominican. Um, I was really happy, and every time I would go back to Canada, like for a month or two, in the summer usually, um, I was welcomed like a hero. Like I was like a war hero coming back home or something. Like everyone, like they would all throw parties for me, like do like special things, give me gifts. Like it was crazy. I really felt like a celebrity coming home. Um, and yeah, I would just do like a tour of all the congregations that I used to go to, and then I would go back to the Dominican and stay there for a few months, and then come back and do a tour. And so yeah,
I like that. I mean, you can see the allure of that, and
yeah,
um, I'm sure that there are a lot of people that can probably relate who, they're going off to Bethel, or maybe they're coming back from Bethel, and
yeah.
people are excited to have them back.
Hmm.
Though that sometimes can be looked at another way, but
Hmm.
you, there are precious few opportunities inside the organization to really feel special, and you were getting to feel that special feeling. You did truly care about people, as evidenced by the way you were working with people. You actually cared about the people that you were visiting on a personal level, not just a JW level. Um, and so you can see why it would be attractive to you to do this in the Dominican, and then to go back, and then people are treating you really nicely. Um, I mean, goodness, that who doesn't want things like that in their life in some way, right? They actually feel like healthy things on some level.
Yeah, and I felt like I had truly succeeded in life.
Yeah.
That's how I felt, and I was really happy. I mean, it was, now I know that all of it was fake and based on a lie, but I was really happy, like blissful ignorance, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
um, yeah, and eventually things started spiraling out of control.
So how did
So
things change?
a lot of things happened that year. Um, First of all, uh, in the Dominican, since it's a warm country, and so there are a lot of guys walking around shirtless all the time on the street or on the beach or anywhere. And when you're going door to door, also like you see like people like shirtless guys all the time, and they're not going to put a shirt on for you. Like you're going to study with them, and they're they're going to stay shirtless, and they're like, like it was really my type, so dark skin, like um really hot guys. So I I was just going crazy. Like seeing that every day was really, I was trying to suppress my gayness and my feelings, but it was not working. Um, and also, for those who know that culture, like, well, especially in the more poor areas, like uh, people don't really have a real shower at home, so they have what I call a bucket shower. So they go outside in front of their house, in front of the whole neighborhood, and they just shower with, like, they have a bucket of water, and they have like a little bowl of something, and they will just like shower like that. They would just put water on themselves and shower in front of everyone. Usually they were wearing like underwear, but you see everything. It's wet. So
Well, they don't go in the backyard, they go in the front yard?
there is no backyard.
There is no
Backyard
backyard?
is all the same.
Huh,
It's all like a
all
bunch
right.
of houses all like, stuck together. So
Okay. Hey.
And I would, so especially in the evening when I would go out and do Bible studies, like I would sit outside and study with someone, and then there's this guy taking a shower right in front of me, and he's even talking to us like while he's showering. So I always felt like so awkward and like, oh my gosh, and like, wow, like it's just like anyway, so it was really hard to focus on something other than what was there. So
Sure.
so that kept happening, and yeah, so it was impossible to pretend I was not gay or to like not think about those things. And eventually, I had a neighbor who was also very hot. He was Dominican. Um, I guess he was bisexual or bi-curious, I don't know. But he kept teasing me, and he wanted to hook up with me. And he was working for my landlord, so he was always near my house doing some like renovations or something. He was always doing something. Like my landlord was um, doing a lot of changes um, around with all of his apartments. So this neighbor was always there, and of course he was working shirtless, and he was sweaty, and like, so I could see him all the time when I was at home. I could see him through the window, and he would just like, my door was always open because over there like it's really hot, so you open all the windows, open all the doors, and that's it. So he would come in front of the door or in front of my balcony, and he would just start flexing his muscles in front of me. Like, or like blow me a kiss or something.
He was peacocking.
So gosh, I felt so bad. Um, but I was really, really attracted to him. And like I was sexually repressed. Like, so I was going crazy. um, I always resisted him. I said, no, like I cannot do this. Like I'm a Jehovah's Witness. Like I'm serving God, Jehovah. I'm not gonna do something like that. Like, and it was like, yeah, whatever. Like I know who you are. I know you want this. I'm like, no. But yeah. Um eventually he asked me, he said, oh, by the way, like I heard that you're a language tutor online. I would love to learn French. Here, I'll give you my Skype, and we can have lessons. I'm like, okay, like I don't think you have money to pay me, but whatever. Like he's like, anyway, so I took it and I added him on Skype just out of curiosity. And one day he called me, and he was jerking off in front of the camera, and I was like, oh my god, like, but I didn't end the call. I was just watching him, and he's like, oh, I knew you liked me, like otherwise you would have ended the call. I'm like, oh well, I didn't know what to say. Eventually I ended the call, but another time it happened again, and he called me, and that time we actually jerked off together, so it was kind of like cyber sex. um, I felt so bad. I felt like I had betrayed Jehovah. I felt so dirty. Um, and like it's not, I don't think it's even considered like fornication by the JW like rules, because it's all like online. But I don't know. I felt so terrible about that. And um after that, he wanted more. He was like, "Come on, we can do it in person." He kept like asking me for more, and I always said no. And I was really going crazy. I was praying so much, and I felt like I did not have the strength to resist anymore. And eventually, I just prayed. I said, Jehovah, this is it. This is, I cannot take anymore. This is the point that I need you to take over, because I'm not able to do anything more than that. This is too much for me to endure. And like weirdly, after I prayed, I did not see him for several months. He went away to another city for school or whatever. I don't know why he went away. He came back later eventually, but he was going back and forth. So he wasn't really in my life anymore. I felt like Jehovah had answered my prayer and that he was like taking care of me. Um, and then there was this gay disfellowshipped Canadian brother who was in my town. Um, I had seen him at the meetings since I moved there. He had always been there, but I never talked to him because he's disfellowshipped. And with time, I heard stories about him, and I found out that he's gay. And the reason why he got disfellowship was because he was hooking up with guys in the town. And it was a huge scandal. Like it was a lot of drama. Anyways, he got disfellowshipped, and one day I don't remember what happened exactly, but I started talking to him online. We were texting, and he was actually so encouraging somehow. So he was more encouraging to me than any of the elders there. Because I felt like I was struggling a lot at that time because I felt like I would fall and I would end up like doing like having sex with a guy and getting disfellowship. I was terrified of that happening. And he, like that disfellowship guy, he understood what I was going through. He made me feel understood. He made me feel normal. And um, he really encouraged me to not give up. He was still like mentally in, like he was disfellowship, but he was believing JW more than most. um, and eventually we met up in person, and we were talking, and we cuddled a little bit on his bed, and eventually he kissed me. And later he said he was just testing me to see if I would kiss him back or not, to see if I was strong enough. I don't know, but I
Just being a
was,
good friend,
yeah.
looking out for your spirituality.
Yeah, but I don't know about him, but I was falling for him. I was falling in love with him. And I anyways, we were talking every day on the phone, like I mean texting, for like a month, 1 month, 1 full month. And obviously it was in secret. I didn't tell anyone about it. And at the end of that month, he said, I'm moving back to Canada because I'm never going to get reinstated if I stay here because there's too much temptation. So I'm like, okay, well, but I was really disappointed because I wanted him to stay here. Um, I mean, there, because I'm in Canada now, but I back then I was in the Dominican. Um, so, anyways, he ended up giving me some of his stuff because he couldn't bring everything back to Canada. And I had a roommate back then. And so one day I came home with a bunch of weird stuff. And he looked at me, he was like, what's all that? And he's like, I'm like, oh, it's just stuff, you know. I didn't really answer. But what I did not know is that he recognized the stuff because he used to be that guy's roommate in the past before he got disfellowshipped.
Whoa, small world.
Yeah, so and actually, anyways, I'll before getting into that. So yeah, so he recognized the stuff and he realized that I was in contact with a disfellowship person. So that was the start of a lot of problems. This roommate that I had, he somehow supposedly lost his apartment. I don't know what happened, but he started living with me without me really realizing it. So he was just sleeping on my couch and eating my food and not paying rent. And I was like, okay, and like we were friends back then, but we were not friends anymore after after all of that, because he was taking advantage of me, not like the people in the territory. But yeah, he refused to pay rent. I was like, come on, you have, like, you live here, you don't have another apartment, you have to pay part of the rent. He's like, well, you're white, you're Canadian, you have money, and you're gonna ask a poor Haitian to pay rent? Like, what is wrong with you? You should be ashamed of yourself. And what? Like, I'm not rich. You know that I barely work.
And he was a Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah, he was a JW as well.
So it was the JWs who you had to look out for that
Yeah,
were gonna take advantage of the white guy.
exactly. Yeah, not not the people I was studying the Bible with.
Interesting.
Yeah. So eventually, like after a huge fight, he threw money at me because he at first he didn't have a job. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna ask you for money. But and then he got a job and he was still not paying rent for several months. So I was like, no, like you have a job, you're gonna pay rent. Unless otherwise, like go find somewhere else to live. I'm not gonna deal with this. So um he was angry and he just threw a pile of money in my face.
Make it
Like
rain.
here's your rent, like, and super angry, and he just left the room. I was like, okay. um Gosh, I was surrounded with really toxic people. um and then like after this whole thing with the guy, the disfellowship guy, I so eventually he told me that he knew that I had been in contact with him, and he actually saw some of the messages that I had sent to him on my phone. He had like I don't know how he did that, but he saw that. Um and he told me about it, and he was calling me a liar, that I was fake witness, and that I was just disgusting, and like I should get disfellowshipped and all of that crap. And I found out that actually the reason why he stayed with me for so long was not because he couldn't find another apartment. It was because there was a ministerial servant in the congregation who asked him to stay with me so that he could like keep an eye on me and report back to him if there
So
was
he was a
something
plant.
suspicious. Eh?
He was a plant.
Yeah, so he was spying on me and reporting back to that guy. I was really annoyed when he told me that. He actually told me that. He was angry and he told me the truth. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And then I found out that he had started a lot of rumors about me, and people were talking behind my back. They were all saying that I was having sex with this disfellowship guy, which was not true. We never had sex, nothing like that. Um, and there were like other rumors that I was just like a whore, like hooking up with a lot of random guys, like prostitutes and whatever, like which I never did. But yeah, that was that was the gossip that was going around the congregation, and I was really annoyed by that. It was really hard. Now I'm laughing about it because it's so ridiculous, but I felt really betrayed, and I felt so bad because I was trying so hard to do the right thing. I was trying so hard to not give up and not have sex with anyone and just keep serving Jehovah and doing everything I was supposed to do. I was trying so hard and no one cared. Everyone was just making up stories about me and spreading them. And that was really hurtful because I felt like, well, what's the point? I'm doing everything right. but people think I'm this bad person. And yeah. Eventually I kicked the guy out of my apartment. um, Before I did, I ended up with another roommate at the same time and another one. So I had three roommates in a tiny apartment, one bedroom apartment. They were
I
all
hope they
sleeping
weren't all from that same congregation.
yes, they were all in from my congregation.
Okay.
And it was a one bedroom, but I had one bedroom, one bathroom, one living room and kitchen all together and a small balcony. And I had one guy sleeping on my couch, one guy sleeping on the floor, no blanket, nothing, and one guy sleeping with me in the bed. That was another problem because the guy sleeping with me in the bed somehow, so we were sleeping and I'm used to sleeping by myself. And it was a big bed, so I was always used to move around a lot. And somehow I ended up pretty close to that other brother that was sleeping in the same bed with me. And for some reason, the my first roommate got up in the middle of the night. He came into my room and he saw us and he took pictures of us. And in an angle that it really looks like we're really cuddling, you know. We were both sleeping, and not realizing in what position we were. And um, so he showed that picture to like a lot of people. And that was it. Like another rumor, like me and this brother were having sex. No, we were not. But anyways, so I was just tired of all of that. I threw
Also, can I
everything.
just say, if they think something's going on with you and you're this whore who's sleeping around with everyone, why do they keep sending men into your house?
I don't
What the heck?
know.
That is so messed up. Hey, let's overwhelm him to where somebody's got to sleep in the bed with him, and let's got have guys on the floor and on the couch, and let's just make this completely awkward and tempting. And God, this
Oh
makes
yeah,
no
it
sense.
was terrible. I was really relieved when I kicked them out. I was like, I don't care if you sleep on the street. You're not sleeping here tonight. Like, get out of here, all of you. And they were all so angry, and they were like, "Oh, Patrick is such a bad person. Like,
It's like Job and his false
um,
comforters.
yeah, yeah." They were like saying even more bad things about me because of that. So I was like, I don't care. Just leave me alone. And so another weird thing that happened at the same time. So when the disfellowship guy moved back to Canada, his dog actually ended up living with me for a while. Um, so well, he officially gave his dog to another brother in the congregation, but he was living on the same street as me. And that dog didn't really like that brother, but she liked me. So she would come to my house and she decided she would live with me and not with that brother. So I was like, okay, I'll take care of her. But because that's a disfellowship dog, because it was a dog belonging to a disfellowship person. Now, that was a big problem because everyone was like asking, like, oh, why do you have this dog living with you? Like, this dog belonged to a disfellowship person. How did you end up with that dog if you were not having sex with that guy? Like, and like just crazy things. Or like, because that dog was really like always following me everywhere. Like she would follow me to the Kingdom Hall because I lived close to the Kingdom Hall and I would walk there for the meetings. Uh, and the dog would follow me to the Kingdom Hall. And people were not happy to see that dog at the Kingdom Hall. And they were calling her a disfellowship dog. Well, not all of them, but some of them were saying that. It was just so ridiculous. Like, what's wrong with it? It's a dog. Like, and actually, there was another dog hanging out around the Kingdom Hall, a stray dog that ended up being adopted by a sister.
That's
And
a worldly dog.
yeah. But
Not
that dog,
association of worldly dogs.
that dog was always at every meeting, and people were always happy. Oh, this is our JW dog, and we ended up calling her Jota, which is like the letter J in Spanish, J for JW. And she would accompany like the publishers in service, like when they were preaching nearby and things like that. But for my dog, it was really bad. So, anyways, eventually they calmed down and they didn't care anymore. And eventually,
Congratulations, Patrick. I think you just shared the dumbest JW moment I've ever heard on any podcast. They're disfellowshipping dogs and
oh
adopting other dogs and naming them J for Jehovah and
yeah,
all this. What the hell? It's a dog.
yeah, oh
Oh
yeah. Like a
God.
lot of crazy stuff happens down there.
Okay, so
um,
all right, so you obviously have a lot of suspicion cast on you.
yes.
So how does this end up playing out? Because I mean, you've already alluded to getting disfellowshipped at some point.
Well, the elders came to investigate as they do. Um, they showed up at my place. They were like, "Okay, we have heard some rumors about you, and we need to check if they are true." So I was like, "Okay, what did you hear?" And he's like, "Well, first of all, have you had sex with such and such?" Like, no. Have you been in contact with him? I'm like, "Yes, we have talked." Of course, back then I thought the worst thing I could do was to lie to elders. Like, I cannot lie to elders because that's it. Like, I'm going to lose Jehovah's approval if I lie to an elder. So yes, I told everything. I said, yeah, we have been chatting for a month, but when he moved back to Canada, we decided that we would stop talking because we know that it's against the rules. Like, I'm not supposed to talk to him and until he's reinstated. And they were like, okay, um, but we have heard some rumors. And they didn't say what rumors, but I knew what it was because I had heard some of them. And I was like, no, none of this is true. And then they asked me directly, are you gay? And so at the time, I had not come out to, like, I had told my cousin back when we were teenagers that I was in love with this young brother. So my cousin knew. No one else. I had never like come out to anyone else. And these two elders are there sitting on my couch in front of me asking me, "Are you gay?" And I said, "Yes, I have struggled with homosexual desires my whole life." That's how I said it. So it sounds really weird, but yeah. Um, and I said, I never did anything. I never had sex with anyone. I'm doing my best to follow Jehovah's direction and rules and everything. Um, so, okay, these two elders, one of them was a Canadian, but he was living in the Dominican. The other one was a Haitian elder, and he was considered the son of the Canadian elder because uh, they studied together, and that's how he became a witness. And they both of them are kind of like the same. They have the same personality because the younger one just copied the other one. And they are both very cold, like no love, no compassion, nothing, just like disdain. And the first thing that they asked was, have you been sexually abused as a child? Like, no, that never happened to me. How is that related to anything? Like, because in their mind, if you're gay, it's because you have been abused as a child, and that's why you're gay. That's not how it works. And so I said no. And then next question. So it was just like a bunch of questions, one after the other. Like, have you ever watched porn? What kind of porn? How often? Do you masturbate? How often? When was the last time you did it? like all of these, like I was so ashamed. I felt so dirty and so humiliated, and like they are invading my home to just make me feel like dirt, basically. So it was not a very pleasant time. They just made me feel like a monster. They didn't encourage me in any way. I I was there, like telling them my darkest secrets, and it was like just like, ugh, you're disgusting. Like they didn't say that, but that's I could see that in their face, like very clearly. So
They're not there to help. They're there to see if they need to uh what type of discipline they need to met out. They're not there to see, like, is Patrick like someone that is, trying hard, and they're not looking for the good in you, they're looking for the bad. Where's the bad? Let's bring out the bad so that we can criticize the bad.
mhm, yeah,
And
definitely.
that's what it's really about.
Yeah, and they said, okay, we're gonna like deliberate, and we will get back to you to tell you our decision. And I was terrified, but obviously I did not do anything that, but like, okay, so for the porn thing, according to their rules, because it's gay porn, it's worse than straight porn.
Of course.
So gay porn for them is the same as like really super violent porn, or like something like, I don't know, like child abuse porn or something. Like gay porn is on the same level of with these things for them in their mind. So it didn't matter if it was just something very like nothing, but for them it was like the worst. So um, they came back to me a few days later and they said, well, we're taking your privileges away. You're not going to be a pioneer or a ministerial servant anymore. And um, they basically said that. So how did they say that? They said, so the Canadian elder said that the first day that I arrived there, when before moving there, but when I went there on a trip, he knew that there was something wrong with me. He told me that to my face. He said, I had doubts about you from the first day we met, and now I know why. And I don't understand why the elders in your home congregation gave you these privileges, because I would never have given them to you. And he was looking at me like I was garbage, and he was so much better than me. It was disgusting. It was really like awful. Like, so yeah, and so I lost my privileges. That was like everything that mattered to me. Like that was my life. I didn't have anything else outside of this. Like I was a pioneer. I was helping the congregation. I was out there on a tropical island far away from home to help because I cared about this, and they took everything away from me. And of course I didn't get disfellowshipped at that time, um, but still I felt like my life was over. And during that time my parents were visiting, actually, so they were staying close to where I was living, and I knew that they would be there at the meeting when they would announce that I am no longer a pioneer and all that. So I was like, okay, I need to tell my parents first before they find out at the meeting and they freak out. So I went to their hotel room and I said, I have something very important to tell you, something serious. And my mom was like, oh, what happened? What did you do? Like something like that. She was like, really, like she could see that I did something bad or something. So, and I could see the nervousness and disappointment in her eyes. Um, so I just said it. I said, well, I lost my privileges and it's going to be announced at the meeting on Thursday. And I wanted to tell you first so that you're not too shocked when it's announced. And the reason why is because I used to watch porn and I told the elders, and it was gay porn because I'm gay. I just told all of that. Um, and my parents were just like really shocked, and they reacted kind of well considering. um, so my dad didn't really say anything as usual. My mom said that I think the first, or I don't remember if the first thing she said was that she still loves me, or if, but because she also said, uh, I always knew, but I always hoped that it wasn't true. So that was one of the first thing that she said. Even like she also said that she still loves me and that she will support me because I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not like having sex with anyone. So she said, as long as you're single and serving Jehovah, then it's okay. Like it's just like some kind of sickness that you need to live with, which is terrible.
Mhm.
But at the time, I also like I felt like okay, like I understand that, and I was okay with that. Um,
It feels loving in the moment
yeah, it was
because
not.
you're so starved for love in the
Mhm,
organization that, as I've often said, that a drop of water in the desert is not an oasis.
mhm,
It's just it might feel that way in the moment because you're in such an emotional desert. Any
mhm.
drop of love or attention feels like it's so much bigger, but it's not.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's healthy or that it's good. And because we often get so little from our JW parents, any little thing that seems on any level reasonable feels like the biggest gesture in the world, because we're just so starved, um, so thirsty for that attention and actual love. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, she was at least trying to be supportive in the way that she could, though still hanging out the threat that, of course, as long as you never act on this on your sickness,
Yeah,
as she said,
exactly.
you know.
So of course there was a condition, like
Of course.
as long as I stay faithful to Jehovah and do nothing about it, then it's okay. But
Right.
the moment I do something about it, it's not okay.
Right.
um, yeah. So, and yeah. So that's how I came out to my parents. The announcement was made. People were like even more talking about me like behind my back, spreading more rumors, and this announcement like okay, like Patrick is no longer a regular pioneer and is no longer a ministerial servant, and that's it. That's the announcement, and then the meeting goes on, and like no one knows, and no one is just everyone is just assuming that oh we just have proof that all of these rumors about him were true. So, which was not the case. But I couldn't do anything to just defend myself and defend my reputation. People wanted to believe what they wanted to believe, and that was that. So I I lost a lot of friends, but some of my friends stayed my friends, and it was okay. So I was still going out in service. I was still doing pioneer hours, even though I was not officially a pioneer. I did that for the next year. So I was still a pioneer, but unofficially. um,
But shows how much you actually really cared.
yes, I
It
did. I
wasn't
was
it
like,
wasn't just about the title. You were actually there to do
yeah.
it.
I would say to people like, I don't care about the title. It's not about the title. It's about what I'm doing. And you can take away the title from me, but you cannot prevent me from doing it. And so I did it. And I felt like it was unfair to lose my privileges because I had always struggled with that my whole life, and they still gave me privileges. And I was like, well, it's like the elders are directed by Holy Spirit. So it must be because Jehovah wants me to be a pioneer and all that. So so it's okay because I'm doing my best, even though I'm not perfect and I make mistakes, I'm doing my best and it's okay. Jehovah approves me in my service. And to have that taken away from me because suddenly they knew about something that had been going on for a long time, I was really annoyed. I felt like it was not fair. And actually, so the thing is, since I had been talking with that disfellowship guy, he had encouraged me so much that I had actually stopped watching porn. So I was not watching porn anymore. Um, at the time I lost my privileges. But they said, because I told them I'm not doing it anymore. I haven't done it in months. And they said, well, you've done it in the past. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not doing it anymore. And I'm like, I don't care. You've done it in the past, so you don't deserve your privileges. And that was that. So I felt like it was an injustice, and I was not happy about that. But yeah, and I kept it a secret from everyone back home. I didn't tell anyone, even when I went back home on a trip for a month. I didn't tell anyone. Everyone thought I was still a pioneer and everything because I was always going out in service anyway. So they just,
No, you were still doing it. So what's the
yeah, I was
matter if the
doing
name's
everything.
applied?
And some people were like, "Oh, could you give a public talk in our hall?" And like, actually, I would just give an excuse because I'm not allowed to give public talks anymore, but I wouldn't tell them. I was like, oh, well, actually, I think I'm pretty busy. I'm just here for a couple of weeks. And um, so, uh, so yeah, I was so ashamed to have lost my privileges. Yeah, I felt like I had lost my value as a person because, yeah,
And at
that's
that
why.
point, all you had lost was your privileges.
Yeah, but the privileges were the reason why everyone admired me and everyone thought I was so great and everyone
Yeah, I'm
treated.
just pointing out that it gets even worse when you lose that along with, being disfellowshipped and then losing,
Oh
so
yeah.
much more,
So, anyways, that was that. And um, what happened eventually, around the same time I lost my privileges, there was an older brother in my congregation. We were going out in service a lot together, and he was really generous. He would bring me vegetables from the garden, and he was very kind. Um, but I always felt like he was kind of creepy. But I trusted him. He was a brother in the congregation, and like, anyways, what happened is that eventually, like, he took advantage of my trust and he sexually abused me. And while it was happening, I felt paralyzed. I couldn't do anything. And I thought, it's like I could see Jehovah looking at me and like with very disappointed eyes and uh, with disapproval. And I felt like I had lost everything during that moment and I couldn't do anything about it. I was so like, it really messed me up and I couldn't even move. Eventually, I was able to grab his collar because I mean, I say he sexually abused me. We didn't have actual sex, but it was still an abuse. Um, we were still wearing our clothes, but um, I grabbed him by the collar and he stopped what he was doing and he stood up. And I remember feeling like this is it. This is how it ends. Like I'm gonna die at Armageddon and that's it. I finally like lost lost the fight that I have been fighting for all my life. And so when he stood up, he like I also sat down and I was like under shock and he said, no one needs to know about this. This is between you and me and Jehovah, and We do not need to involve the elders. You already lost your privileges. You don't want to lose anything more.
Ooh, he knew what was up.
So,
That's
yes,
predatory.
yes, very. And I didn't see it back then. I felt bad for him. I thought that well, I didn't even know that he was attracted to other guys. Like, he was married to a woman. He had a daughter. I had no idea, but I always felt this creepy feeling around him, and I couldn't quite understand what it was. But at the same time, he was so kind to me, so generous, so I trusted him. That's how it goes. That's how it happens. And I was very naive, um, of course, as a JW. But anyways, um, so well, he convinced me to not say anything, and I like for several weeks and months, whenever I saw him and no one was around, I would tell him we should go to the elders. We should confess what happened. I don't feel like I don't feel good with the situation. I feel guilty. My conscience is not clean, and I'm worried about my survival. And he always had a way to like twist things and make me feel like I was the one in the wrong. Oh, like, why are you still worried about that? It's been so long. Like, I already forgot about that a long time ago. Like, I prayed Jehovah and it's okay. Like, he forgave me. You should do the same. And like, if you need the elders, then it means you're spiritually weak because you can't deal with it yourself. It's just between you and Jehovah. And yeah, so that's the kind of thing that he would say. Obviously, he wanted to protect himself. Um, so I I just kept living life, trying to do my best, still going out in service all the time, um, still like doing everything, the meetings, personal study. Because I didn't have any responsibilities in the congregation anymore, I had a lot more free time. So I was studying a lot more, reading the Bible, studying the publications and everything, like indoctrinating myself. And every time I read something about like, I don't know why, like it was always about like hidden sins and all that. I felt so terrible like reading these things, and it was just awful. And I felt like, oh my gosh, like I'm in big trouble, like I need to confess. And I eventually did. Like 9 months later, it took 9 months, and I actually wrote a letter, a confession letter to the elders. And I did not want to talk to these elders because they had not been very helpful to me. They knew I was gay, and they did not like me. And oh, I also forgot to say that they had been visiting me during those 9 months. They visited me like I think once a month or something, to encourage me supposedly, but it was not encouraging. It was always like throwing random articles like at me, like that had nothing to do with me. Like this random guy, worldly guy who was um it's not clear if he was trans or gay or whatever, and he was also into drugs and everything, and then suddenly like he learned the truth and he became a witness and he got married with a wife and he got kids and lived happily ever after. And like, why are you showing me this? This has nothing to do with me. Like, so
But
I was
they don't understand any of it. They just see it all as being the same.
exactly, they don't understand. And I told them, if you think I have not read every single article about this published by the Watchtower, like, who do you think I am? Like, I've been struggling with this my whole life. I have read everything about this, but that is published by the organization.
And it didn't fix you yet?
Yeah.
Is this supposed to magically, you read these articles about trans people, even though that you're gay, and it's just going to make you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Heterosexual now.
It's so stupid. They have no idea what they're talking about, and
There it
they were
is.
just coming to my house asking me, "Oh, have you masturbated in the last month?" Like what the hell? And showing me these random articles and and telling me like really hurtful things and just treating me like I'm like I have a contagious disease or something. Like it was really bad. And so I did not want to confess to them, but I had no other choice. There were no other elders. So, a small congregation, there were like, I think 3 elders. So, or maybe 4 at some point. Um, anyway, so I wrote a letter, a very long, detailed letter, detailing everything that happened. Uh, and like I really opened my heart in that letter. I told how I felt, um, like the guilt and everything, the like feeling that I disappointed Jehovah, betrayed him, and everything. And obviously, I said what happened, and it was clear that I did not want to do this. It just happened, and I was a victim. But still, I felt terrible as if it was my fault, and they still treated it as if it was my fault. Um, anyways, I sent them the letter, and they got back to me, and they said, "Well, don't worry, we will help you, and the help will come uh, with a judicial committee." So I'm like, okay. And I was really nervous, but I also confessed to my parents at the same time. I told them what had happened, and they were really supportive, and they understood that it was not my fault, and they helped me understand that it was not my fault. And I'm really grateful for them for what they did for me at that time, because I was really depressed and discouraged, and I felt worthless because I felt like it was my fault, and they helped me understand I wasn't. And my parents told me, like, of course you won't get disfellowshipped. Like, how could you get disfellowshipped for that? You got abused. It's not your fault, and you are obviously repentant, even if it's not your fault. And you're the one who confessed to the elders. So it's not like they figured it out. You're the one who confessed. And I also confessed because I was worried that he had been doing the same thing to other people in the congregation, which turns out he was doing. He also abused one of his Bible students. And weirdly, that Bible student went to the elders and told the elders about that at the same time that I confessed. So it was a weird coincidence. Um, but yeah, and I suspect that he also abused some other brothers, younger, uh, like over 18 years old, but young young brothers in the congregation. I don't have confirmation, but it seems like it. Uh, so he got disfellowshipped pretty quickly, and then it was my turn for the committee. Oh, so that brother, when he got disfellowshipped, he actually moved. He was Haitian. He was from Haiti, but he was living in the Dominican. He moved back to Haiti. I never saw him again. I never heard from him again. Um, I don't know if he's still disfellowshipped or if he went back. I was glad to have him out of the picture. I had hope that I would not get disfellowshipped, and my parents actually came to the Dominican to support me during that time, so I wouldn't be by myself. Um, so I went to the judicial committee at the hall. It started at 7 p.m. It ended at 1 a.m. 6 hours. It was ridiculous. It was not even about what I wrote in my letter. Um, the first thing they said, they asked, "Do you want to add anything to the letter you sent us?" I'm like, "No, I purposely wrote every detail so I wouldn't have to talk about it because I feel very ashamed of that." And I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget any details, so I wrote it because it's easier for me to write than to speak. And they said, "Okay." And they said that my letter was manipulative because um but I just expressed my feelings, and I said that I felt bad and everything. And they said that I was trying to manipulate them into thinking that I was repentant. Anyways, I don't understand. It makes no sense.
They could
Um,
see that you were repentant. They just didn't want to hear it,
yeah,
and they wanted to kick you out.
yes, exactly.
Their
They
decision was made before you walked into the room.
yeah, yeah, exactly. The decision had been made. It was obvious, very obvious. Um, and they they didn't even talk much about what happened with that older brother. Um, they they went on like weird things, weird accusations that made no sense. And so the Canadian elder, um, he took out his tablet and he showed me my Instagram profile, and he was like, "Okay, let's look at your Instagram photos." I'm like, "Okay." Like, so I had gone to a trip to Korea uh, earlier, a few months before that, Korea and Japan, and I posted a lot of pictures there. And he showed me some pictures of me with a Korean brother. uh, we took a lot of pictures together because I was staying with his family, and he was showing me around his city and we had a lot of pictures together and with other people as well. But the elder said, "It looks like this brother is a homosexual, and it looks like you two are in love." I'm like, "No." I was literally laughing when he said that because that thought never crossed my mind. Like, it was just so ridiculous to hear that in a judicial committee about me being sexually abused by another brother. This had nothing to do with that. Like, he's accusing me of something that is so ridiculous. Like, I could not believe what I was hearing. And then I was like, "No, it's not that." Like, and he just kept showing me pictures of us. Like, look how you are both eating ice cream, and you look like a couple on a date. I'm like, "What?" Like, it made no sense. Um,
I'm sorry, but as you're saying this, I can't help but think, this elder, and he's got his little minion there that he brought in who's just like him.
mhm,
And just the obsession about this and the weirdness about this, and I knew you were gay all along, and
mhm.
like blah blah blah, just really makes you wonder about him and this his little mini me.
Who knows? Yeah. It's
Makes you wonder if there's not somebody who feels guilty about something in their own life and is
oh,
projecting
probably.
a lot.
Yeah. And so the three elders, at the committee, he was the Canadian one was the only one who was doing the talking. Like, the other two were new elders, and they were just saying, "Yeah, I agree to everything." So, like, how can you,
He
like,
had
it's
total
impossible.
control of that whole situation.
Yeah, it's impossible to get out of there without getting disfellowshipped.
Yeah, you're gonna be railroaded. It doesn't matter how we know how this is gonna go.
Yeah, like, he looked at my followers on Instagram because I said, like, my Instagram account was not private; it was public, and a lot of JWs from around the world were following me because I had nice pictures in all of these countries and all of these congregations, all of these Bethels and everything. I was so I was super popular on Instagram as
He
well.
could have
So
been jealous of that too.
yeah, and so he was looking at the list of my followers, and some of my followers were not JWs. and I didn't know them. I never even saw them. Like I didn't know who was following me. I didn't pay attention to that. So he took a random follower. He showed me that follower's pictures, and that was like a gay guy who posted like a lot of gay stuff. And he was like, look at the kind of person who is following your Instagram. Who is this guy? I'm like, I don't know him. He's just a random follower. I don't know my followers. Like, don't you know how this works? Like, I was terrified. I felt like so attacked, and I didn't understand what was going on. Like, it made no sense. And I was defending myself, of course, because what he was saying didn't make any sense. But every time I defended myself, he would say, well, that's really hard to believe. It's hard to believe what you're saying. Basically, I'm a liar and I'm hiding all of these crazy things. And he discovered all of that on my Instagram.
I mean, Patrick, you did have a disfellowship dog at one point.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And he also went through the pictures that I liked. I don't know how he saw that, but he went to someone I was following. He was an artist, a singer who actually came from my hometown, and I knew him before he became famous. And I was following him, and I liked some of his pictures. And he said, well, this guy kind of looks like he has homosexual tendencies, which is not true. He's very straight. He has a girlfriend. And, and he said, well, you obviously think he's attractive, don't you? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm attracted to him. And he's like, oh, you're attracted to him. Like, what? Like, yes, he is good looking. And he's like, well, there's a difference between saying that someone is good looking and someone is attractive. Or no, there's a difference between saying someone is good looking and saying you are attracted to that person. If you're attracted to them, it means you want to have sex with them. So I was just like, what is going on here? So, oh gosh, I didn't know what to say in the end. Like 6 hours nonstop, all of that crap. Like
It doesn't matter what you said.
I couldn't say anything.
Yeah, it didn't matter. What do you say to insanity? You can't
Yeah,
reason with unreasonable people.
exactly. So eventually he said, oh, well, actually, so what you did with such and such brother, the guy who abused me, uh, if you had confessed right away, it would have been okay, and you would just be like privately reproved. But since you lied to us for 9 months and you hid it for 9 months, then you deserve to like a stronger punishment. What difference does it make? I mean, I stayed quiet because I was traumatized. That's literally trauma. And when someone is abused, he will not just go tell everyone. Like they don't know anything about how the like people work, how like about psychology, nothing. Like they just they don't know what they're doing, and they're just controlling people and hurting people.
Yeah, they believe that Smurfs run out of kingdom halls and that there are things like disfellowship dogs. These are not people who are trained in any way, to deal with trauma or psychology or uh, sexuality. They're
No.
not. My dad used to do it. My dad was an elder. He was, oh my God, the level of ignorance was just astounding. I can't remember, but I remember at some point he thought you should be disfellowshipped if you used a patch to try to quit smoking.
Oh wow. Okay.
And because it's basically like smoking. And I
Hmm.
was like, but you're using it to quit smoking. He's like, basically, if you can't pray in a way, then
Yeah.
then you should be shunned, and your support system should be ripped away from you. And I mean, my dad was just all about punishment, just
Oh yeah.
and that's what they're doing with you.
Yes.
Does
Punishment. It's not
Patrick
about
tick
helping
these
me.
boxes? And
Yeah.
if he can doesn't or does check these certain boxes, then he gets kicked out. That's it.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah. And I felt like they were purposely attacking me to see how I would react.
Probably.
And I was just denying everything
That's
because
what manipulative people do, who
yeah.
accuse you then of being manipulative in your
Yeah,
letter.
and then they accused me of lying and not admitting my sins. Like what? So they basically said that I was a liar, and so they made the decision, and they told me that I am disfellowshipped for being a liar. That was the official reason, which makes no sense. That's not
You were
even why I was called
disfellowshipped.
into a judicial committee. Like,
You were disfellowshipped for being a liar.
yes, that was the official reason that they told me. Like, what? Um, yeah, there's no making sense out of that. Like, it's just ridiculous. And so they said I'm poison to the congregation. They need to clean the congregation, throw me away, throw me to Satan, and they they said, gosh, oh yeah, they read one scripture to me. Okay, Jeremiah 30:11. So it was in Haitian Creole. And actually, it's even harsher in Haitian Creole than in English. So I felt really attacked by that. Basically, it says, so in Creole, it says, "Mo paka papi niu." So it means, I cannot not punish you. So that's what they read to me. That's the
So
only
they just
scripture they
picked
read.
out like some random verse about punishing, and we're like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it was no context, nothing. Later that night, I looked up the context, and it had nothing to do with anything. It was just like, it was like Jehovah punishing like Israel for some reason. I don't remember exactly, but like, I cannot not punish you. That's the scripture you're gonna read to me. Nothing encouraging, nothing like, please come back to Jehovah
Well,
or
they
something.
already told you they were handing you over to Satan.
Yeah, they said, we're sending you to Satan. He's your father. Okay. I was
Such a loving
devastated.
arrangement, isn't it?
Yeah. I walked home crying. I was really devastated. I was stunned. Like I had, like, the last 6 hours were just a bunch of nonsense that they were throwing at me, attacking me for nothing. I felt like I was dreaming. Like, I
Well,
wanted to wake up.
you
And
just sat through 6 hours of mental and emotional abuse.
yes. Yeah. Um, I cried myself to sleep, and I didn't understand why Jehovah let that happen. Like, I had always done my best. I was always the model JW, and now I was disfellowshipped for no reason. So the next morning, I woke up. I felt really weird. Like, I was like, is this real? Was that a dream? Please. um, anyways, the first thing I did every morning back then was read a couple of chapters in the Bible. So I did that. And that day I was reading Isaiah 38. And it was very funny because I can just read part of it. It was like, so, I beg you, O Jehovah, remember please how I have walked before you faithfully and with a complete heart, and I have done what was good in your eyes. Then the word of Jehovah came, saying, I have heard your prayer, I have seen your tears, I will rescue you and this city out of the hand of the king of Assyria, and I will defend the city. So I took this very personally, as you would if you had gone through that. Um, I thought, oh my gosh, Jehovah is talking to me directly through the Bible. This is incredible. And he's saying that he will save me from these oppressors, the elders. And I became convinced, especially after talking to my parents about it, that Jehovah had let that happen because he wanted me to appeal, and he wanted me to um, show everyone that these elders, well, especially this Canadian elder, was corrupt. And I thought Jehovah was using me to clean the congregation, which was
Oh, how we read into ambiguous things when we
yes,
have a name.
obviously you read anything in the Bible and you can apply it in any way.
Yeah, it's like a horoscope. You can take it and run it 10 different ways and come up with the way it fits.
Yeah. So I spent like every day with my parents that week. And we were working together on the appeal letter. I ended up writing a 10-page appeal letter um, describing some of the things that the elders told me, and to just yeah, show their true colors, show that it was unfair and it was an injustice and it did not deserve to be disfellowshipped. So I sent that letter to the elders and to the CO. The CO called me. Um, he was a new CO actually. We had just changed, and so I didn't know him personally. He didn't know me. He didn't know anything. So he just said like, oh, well, I can't do anything about it. Like, just do the appeal and we'll see. Just trust in Jehovah. He's directing the elders. Um, so I was like, okay. And then, uh, so the appeal committee, there were 3 other elders. Since we didn't have more elders in our congregation, they were elders from neighboring congregations.
That's how appeals are anyway. They usually go get somebody on the
Oh,
outside.
okay.
Yeah.
So I actually knew 2 of them, which was very awkward because they thought I was this amazing JW, and then they found out everything I had done. um, so the appeal committee meeting was very short. It was not 6 hours long. It was just like, I don't know, like 30 minutes or an hour max. And I didn't realize, I thought that an appeal was that I would be like the first committee would be ignored and the second one they would just rejudge the whole thing, but that's not how it works. They are there to judge the first committee. They're not there to judge me. So the 3 elders from the first committee, they were there sitting right next to me. So I was there in a room with 6 elders and very intimidated. And so what happened is, well, we talked a little bit about everything, and the elders of the appeal committee, they told me directly, well, we can see that you're a good person and that you want to serve Jehovah. You don't want to leave the truth, and that you're doing your best and that you're repentant for whatever you did. We can see that clearly. I'm like, okay, great.
Case closed.
But,
Repentance,
but
right?
unfortunately, we are not here to judge you. And they told me directly, an appeal is not to rejudge you, it's to judge the first committee. So let me ask you this, and they turn around to the other 3. Did what Patrick described you did in his letter, was that true? Yes or no? No, no, no. All of them said no, one after the other. No, it's not true. We only treated him with love and respect. They said that. I was furious. I said, they are lying. I said, and he said, like, oh, calm down, it's okay, everything is going well, don't don't get angry, it's okay, Jehovah's directing everything. And I'm like, okay, I was trying to breathe because these idiots were lying right to my face that we all knew that they were lying, but they didn't care because of course, who are they going to believe? This sinner or the three elders? So
Yeah, the appeal is simply procedural. It's
yeah,
did the original elder body during the judicial committee, did they follow protocol? And as long as they follow protocol, that's it. But it's funny, they said you were repentant. We can tell you're repentant.
yes,
Isn't that all that's supposed to matter? And so if you were
exactly,
repentant, why
because
in the world were you being disfellowshipped?
yeah, and in the organized book, because I did my research, I didn't have the elders book, obviously, but in the organized book, it says clearly that if you see that the person is not repentant, you will try in the committee, you will try to push him towards repentance. And if he is receptive to that, you don't need to disfellowship him. I was already repentant. And in the appeal, they said I was, but it didn't matter. And the other elders, they said, oh, well, yeah, he looks repentant now, but it's because he had time to think in the last week since the first committee, but he was clearly not repentant when he was talking to us. They
Well,
said that.
then, if you were repentant now, all right, let's roll with that. Why would
Exactly. That's what's written in the book.
Uh,
But
not only
no.
not only that, weren't they there to talk about how you were abused by this other brother who had abused other brothers?
Yeah.
Like, or another person related to the congregation.
Yeah.
Um, I thought that's what you were there to talk about, and instead it became about what that one elder wanted it to
Yeah.
be about,
Nothing to
because
do
he
with
had it out for you.
it. So they said, okay, we will talk about this as the appeal committee. Please go outside and wait until we call you back in. So me and the three elders from the first committee went outside. We sat down and I was just praying so hard. Like this was a like life or death situation for me. um, I was praying and praying and praying. And next to me, these three idiots were just laughing and making jokes. They were not even talking about this. They were like boasting about the assignments that they had for the next week during the CO visit. They were like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this part for the CO visit. I'm so blessed to have this part because whatever, whatever." And what like they were talking about that and laughing right next to me. I'm here like about to get thrown out of the truth supposedly, and I was like so scared and praying and praying and praying and like with tears in my eyes, and I couldn't focus because these guys were just laughing about nonsense right next to me instead of being silently respectful or praying as well, you know. No, they didn't care. And I wanted to just yell at them, "Shut up. I'm trying to pray. Don't you care about my salvation?" I wanted to say that, but I didn't because I didn't want to get in more trouble. But I was yelling that in my mind. And eventually they called us back in and they said, well, it seems that the decision was already written in the heavens. What? Like, it sounds like predetermination. Like, they said we decided that you should be disfellowship because we don't have any reason to think that the first committee mistreated you in any way. Just a 10-page long letter describing everything they did. Uh, so yeah, that's what happened. I got disfellowship. I left the hall. I was devastated even more. I told my parents. My parents were like, so what happened? And I'm like, well, disfellowshipped, and they did not understand. They were like, this is outrageous, and they were on my side. um, so yeah, I decided to move back to Canada. So I bought a flight for the same day that my parents were leaving, and we left together. And yeah, so I back home. I lived with my parents in Canada when I moved back. They took me in. They were like, "We're still going to talk to you. You're not disfellowshipped to us because this is clearly an injustice, and they are wrong, and we will tell everyone that they are wrong." So they basically defended me to everyone in the congregation, and that made a lot of drama. And the elders were very annoyed about that because they were saying, like, you cannot just say these things to everyone because people are losing faith in elders. And we don't have proof of anything that Patrick is saying about this, about them. And it might not even be true. So yeah, it was a lot of drama. And then because of that, well, I requested to be reinstated as soon as I got home. I wrote a letter. I was like, well, and because I was in contact with the elders from my hometown while this whole thing was happening down there. So I was telling them, like, what should I do? I need to appeal. Like, this is wrong. They mistreated me, misjudged me, like, accused me of things I didn't do. And the elders were like, well, we're not there. We can't see what's happening, but just trust in Jehovah and do what you need to do, and it's going to be okay. And no, it wasn't okay. And because it wasn't okay, they just assumed that I was a liar and that I was making all this stuff up. And so they didn't trust me, and they thought I deserved to get disfellowshipped, and they didn't want to reinstate me for a long time.
How long did it take?
It took like 14 months. So during these 14 months, I requested reinstatement almost once a month. Eventually, like after like 3 or 4 months in a row, they told me, like, stop requesting every month. Like, it's not gonna happen. Like, forget it. We need more time. You need more time. And I'm
Well, you
like,
were
well,
a liar,
no.
Patrick.
Eh?
I mean, you were a liar. It takes 14 months to get
Yeah.
out of line. You know,
I'm like, how long do I need to wait? I'm not doing anything wrong here. and and they're like, well, there's no rule. We cannot say a number of months, but we will see when you're ready.
once we make you grovel
They
for a while.
wanted me to be at my lowest, and
Yep.
that's what happened. I was going through the letters that I sent for reinstatement. The first few letters, I was very like, you could feel the frustration from the injustice of all of that. And then as months went on, the last few letters, I was just like, I'm worthless. I just deserve to die. I pray that Jehovah just somehow gives me a chance. But I know that I don't deserve to be reinstated. But please just have pity on me. And like, it was it, reading that recently, it was really painful. It was really like disgusting to see how much damaged they they like, I was really mentally and emotionally broken, like completely down. Like, I could not be lower than that.
And now you're repentant.
Yep.
Now, because you're so completely broken down. So at first, you still had your own opinions
Yeah.
and your own feelings about things, but now that they've basically psychologically tortured you for 14 months to the point where you've given up, now you're ready to come back. They gotta break you down so that you can be a good cult member again.
Exactly. Yeah. And well, that backfired. So obviously, because I'm here.
Yeah, yeah. So how did it backfire?
Well, so well, there's a lot of stuff that happened. So during that time, actually, so I also want to say that when I was disfellowshipped, I became suicidal, and I never missed a meeting. I was always there, even though people were just pretending I didn't exist. They weren't even looking at me, like, and uh, I just felt like I was not human. And when I left the meeting, every time I like I was on the road and I saw big trucks driving past me and I just wanted to just crash into them and kill myself. That's how low I was. It was a really dark time for me, and I didn't have anyone. I had my parents, we lived together, so at least I had them. But I didn't have any friends in the world or anything. And all my
And you
friends
had
were all
gone
shunning.
from this huge, remember, you were JW superstar. You had all these people who were on your side. You had, and so it's not like you didn't just lose like the people in your congregation. You just lost congregations and
Yes.
countries,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
So I mean that's a what a precipitous fall, inside the organization. And
Oh
that
yeah.
that had to just I can just only imagine how that took the wind out of your sails.
Oh yeah.
Just
It was really
crushing.
bad. And actually there was some weird stuff because I always had sat in front of the Kingdom Hall at the meetings. And after I was disfellowshipped, I still sat at the same place and in the front. And after a few weeks, the elders said they wanted to talk to me. So I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to be reinstated. And no, they're like, well, people are uncomfortable because they see you sitting at the front of the hall and you're disfellowshipped. So we can't tell you what to do, but people would be more comfortable if you were sitting at the back with the rest of the disfellowship people. So I was like, well, okay, is that a rule somehow? Like, because in the organized book, it clearly states that I can sit anywhere I want. And they're like, yes, of course we can't tell you what to do. We're just saying that like that. You do what you want. So I'm like, okay. I kept sitting at the front. And then they met with me again saying the same thing. Like, well, you say you can't tell me what to do, but you kind of are.
That's
So
how
I
it
ended
works.
sitting at the back.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah. And one day, so randomly, this African guy that I used to study with before moving to the Dominican showed up at the hall and he saw me and he's like, oh, hey, I'm going to sit with you. And I'm like, okay, I did not know what to do. I didn't want to tell him that I was like being punished. and and
I
that
think you're supposed to repeat the word unclean or something like that so many times in a public square or something like that. I don't
oh
know.
boy. So he did that for a few weeks. He would just show up at the hall and he would sit with me and uh it, like on Sunday mornings, just for the public talk, and he would leave for the watchtower. He didn't stay for the watchtower study. Um, so we didn't even talk. We were just sitting together. But the elders asked to meet to see me, and they were like, well, we just have questions about this guy who's been sitting with you. Who is he? And I'm like, well, he's someone I used to study with before I moved to the Dominican, and he just showed up, like, and he decided to sit with me, so why not? And they're like, okay, well, people are talking about this, and people are uncomfortable, and, like, always about like making people uncomfortable, like, so they said that I should not sit with him anymore. Well, I'm like, I'm not gonna like tell him like sit somewhere else. And they said, I don't remember, but like it was so stupid. Like, anyways, he ended up not coming back to the hall after that. I suspect actually that the elders talked to him because one day he came to the meeting, and my mom saw him and she said hi to him, and he looked really annoyed, like really pissed. And she was like, "What's wrong? Did something happen?" And he's like, "No, nothing." And he left before the meeting started. So I suspect that the elders talked to him before the meeting, that he was not supposed to sit with me or something. I don't know. I never asked him, but it's all very weird, like what happened. So
Oh, they would rather piss someone off and stumble them so that they never come back to the Kingdom Hall
mhm.
than have a study sit with a disfellowship person.
Yeah. So yeah, it's ridiculous.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, I even went to the convention, the assemblies. I never missed anything, even as a disfellowship person. And yeah, I always just waited and waited, and I was always studying. Like I was spending like 5 6 hours a day doing like personal Bible study because I didn't have any. I was working a little bit, but I was still living with my parents. Um, I didn't have to pay like a lot of stuff, so I I was used to working just a little bit because like living in the Dominican, it's not that expensive, so you don't need to work much. So I was working, but I had so much free time, and I was using all of that free time to study, read the Bible, like everything, watch the videos, like many times the same videos, the broadcasting and everything. Um, I was
And yet here you are talking to me. It sounds like it didn't take.
no. Well, I was indoctrinating myself, but yeah.
Trying.
So what? So eventually, I got reinstated. So when I was at my lowest, and actually, so when I got reinstated, I had just started watching porn again, just to show that it, like, there's no Holy Spirit involved in that decision. Like, I was more righteous when I got disfellowshipped than when I got reinstated. But I was so happy to finally get reinstated, and everyone was like lining up to welcome me back and like, "Oh my gosh, Patrick, we missed you so much. We're so glad you're back. And you've been shunning me this whole time. I was right here behind you, like at the back of the hall for 14 months. And now suddenly you're happy that I'm back. Like, what?" Like, I felt really disgusted by that, but I kind of pushed that to the side because I was very happy to have my life back. The next day I went out in service right away. And yeah, so uh, fast forward, like, so between the time I got reinstated and the time that I woke up, there was 1 year. So I was just doing my best to just have my life back. Obviously, nothing was the same because people still had doubts about me. Everyone somehow knew I was gay, and they were all talking behind my back and like just these rumors. Um, my goal was to serve Jehovah faithfully, and I also had the goal to find a single brother who never wanted to marry, and we could be roommates and serve Jehovah together. So it's kind of like being married to a brother, but without the sex part. So I was like, okay, I can do this because of course I would see like people that were roommates for like basically 30 40 years, and they were always together and it was fine. um I suspect that these people were gay, but who knows. um so I was looking for that, and I actually came out to my friend who became my roommate. So I had two roommates, um, and I came out to one of them, and I told him about my project, and he said, "Well, I cannot stay single, but I will help you to find someone like that." So, but it didn't happen. He never found anyone for me. Um, But so the thing is, so the forum that I was a part of, still at that time, I met someone on that forum. Um, so he was a believing JW, a brother, and he was also gay. We started talking, and um, we got really close. We became close friends, and I told him like we should be life partners, platonic life partners, and just serve Jehovah together. Like that was my dream, and he was really into that idea too. Um, anyways, so we were just talking, and eventually I went back to the Dominican to visit my old congregation. My parents were not happy about that. They were like, you shouldn't go back there. There are a lot of bad memories there. But I wanted to prove that I wouldn't let the bad stuff like take over the good stuff, you know? So I went there and I saw my friends again. Some people, especially the elders, they were just soft shunning me, pretending I wasn't there. Um, but my friends were there and they were talking to me. I had a really great time, and I met a brother in the Dominican, a Dominican brother, um, who uh, well, he was gay also. Somehow he figured, well, he guessed that I was gay, and I guessed that he was, so we came out to each other, um, and then it was a weird relationship because he just fell in love with me super fast, and he was obsessed with me, and I visited him, and we ended up kissing. We didn't have sex, but we kissed, and it was great. It was really awesome, but I also felt bad about it, and I was like, I do not want to go through that again. I cannot get this fellowship the second time. So I can't do this, and I just told him that we should not speak to each other again because I was not strong enough to resist um, like the attraction I felt for him. So yeah, we kind of stopped talking. I went back to Canada, and yeah, so that was around the time that I woke up. What happened is that I was really active on that forum, and we were talking about the convention, the coming convention. Like, so that was in March, so the convention was the like in June, July, August. Um, and we were all excited to see if there would be new light about homosexuality or something like that. And I was convinced somehow that it would happen. And I was so excited to see the convention videos and everything that I just Googled it, like convention, whatever title of the convention and year of Jehovah's Witnesses. I just Googled it and I found some YouTube videos of leaked convention videos. I was like, oh my gosh, I can see the videos in advance. I was so excited. um, I went to I watched a video. So it was actually the video of the sister who went into a store, and there were like posters of pride, like pride posters, and they're like pride. Everyone was wearing a pride bracelet, and so she bought something, and then she refused to accept the bracelet and all that, and then this whole drama thing. But at first, when I started watching the video, when I saw the girl enter the store, and we could see all the bracelets and everything, and we could see that the sister felt uncomfortable. I actually, for a second, I thought that the sister was a lesbian. And that they were finally acknowledging that we exist. I was like, oh my gosh, there's this lesbian sister, and she feels uncomfortable because of all this pride stuff. And then we'll see how she is doing her best to stay faithful, and she's so strong, and we should accept our gay brothers and sisters and help them to stay strong. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. And then suddenly I realized, oh no, that's not what's going on at all. And I realized that it was like really homophobic. And I was like, no, no, this can't be happening. They're not showing this at the next convention. This is crazy. I was so disappointed. And the video was from Lloyd Evans, and he was actually commenting on this whole thing, but I was skipping his comments because he was a scary bearded apostate. um, so yeah, and then, but I was so disappointed, and I saw, like, in the recommended videos, the Pillowgate video, which is
Mhm.
pretty famous.
Mhm.
um, so I clicked on it because the title said like anti masturbation or something. I was like, what is that? And I recognized the brothers giving the talk. So I was like, okay, this is real. And I was listening to it. I listened to the whole thing, skipping the apostate stuff, just listening to the official video. And that is what I needed to wake up, because I realized that the governing body and all of these people at the top of the organization, they have no idea what they're talking about. They do not know anything about the reality of homosexual or LGBTQ people. Like, they don't understand at all. And they are just saying complete nonsense. And it's so stupid. And after watching that, I was so pissed that I rewatched the whole thing, now not skipping the commentary from Lloyd, and I listened to everything that he had to say, and I was like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. This actually makes more sense than anything. And I realized that it was not the truth. And so I went down a spiral of like binge watching all of his videos on his channel for like 2 weeks. Um, I gradually stopped going out in service, and at the same time, like at the meetings. So I was sitting next to my roommate at the meetings usually, and the elders called me. They were like, "Oh, we have to talk to you about something. Some people are uncomfortable because you're sitting with this brother, and they say that you are sitting too close, and it makes them uncomfortable because they know that you're gay." First of all, how do they know that I'm gay? Because it's supposed to be confidential between the elders and me. Um, like, they're not supposed to know why I got disfellowshipped. And one of the elders just said, well, it's not me. I didn't say anything. Like, you just outed yourself. Like, I never said that it was you, but just you saying that, it's obvious that it was you. So, anyways, so I decided to like sit at the back again. And waking up, I stopped paying attention to the meetings, and I was just like uh, on Reddit, like the ex-JW Reddit, reading a lot of stuff and figuring out things for myself. And yeah, eventually I started missing meetings, and um, the guy that I wanted to be life partners with, we were still talking, and I tried to wake him up. He did not wake up, and but like we eventually we had sex, but I knew it wasn't the truth, so that's why I allowed myself to do that. He still believed in the whole thing, so I don't know how he allowed himself to do that, but he did, And but eventually he said like, oh, I can't keep doing this. If you ask me to choose between Jehovah and you, I choose Jehovah. So that was it. So we stopped talking. And the guy from the Dominican, he was madly in love with me, and and I went back to the Dominican to visit him. We became a couple. It lasted for a year and a half. It was toxic from the beginning. It was The thing is, when you come out from a toxic environment like a cult, it's very easy to go straight into a toxic relationship. So it's very important to work on yourself and your trauma and everything before falling for something else that is toxic. Um, yeah, I've been like blabbing. um,
Well, I mean, you were on a roll there, so I'll just let you go.
mhm,
You're right when you're given certain roles in a cult to play, and you continue to play those roles out. If all you know is dysfunction, it's going to be hard to have functional, healthy relationships. And most of us were just around a lot of dysfunction inside the cults and our personal relationships with family, friends, whatever the case may be. Our relationship with ourself was extremely toxic as well. We were very dysfunctional in the way that we dealt with ourselves. So yeah, it is something that you do need to work through
yeah,
if you want to start to have better relationships. But at first, a lot of people are by default going to go jump into different relationships or join some other group or whatever, looking for community out of desperation, especially if they leave and they're not eyes wide open and they haven't gotten any psychological or emotional support, and they're going to end up repeating some of those patterns. It's just what we all do, and just got to keep growing and trying to get better and move past it.
yeah.
So
So,
where'd you go from the relationship with him?
well, I didn't tell you how I actually officially left the cult.
Ah,
So I woke up, yes, but I was still a JW. I was still pretending. I wanted to fade. I didn't want to lose my family. Um, Eventually, I moved out from the house I was sharing with two other brothers. I moved to my own place, and I was like, well, um, like I need to just I can now just stop going to meetings and everything. Um, and service. I sent like fake service reports for a few months, and then I just stopped sending them, and I became officially inactive. I was very proud of that. um, and then and I would just ignore like messages from elders who wanted to know my new address. I didn't tell them. Um, but and I tried to I talked to my parents about all of this. Like I told them, "Hey, I found some stuff out. It's really like weird and awful." And I showed them videos of talks of Toni Morris that were just ridiculous and disgusting. And my mom was like, "Okay, well, he's an imperfect person, and like it doesn't mean that in Jehovah, like Jehovah sees everything and he will take care of it." Like she agreed that what Toni Morris was saying was ridiculous, but she it didn't matter
she pushed
because
it aside.
it doesn't matter. Like no matter what these people do, it's still Jehovah's organization because it's Jehovah's organization. So it's just circular thinking. There's no getting out of there. So I couldn't convince my parents. um, my mom was really worried. She was crying a lot and like saying like, "Oh, please, like don't look at these things and don't read the old publications because that's like old light, and of course it's not like that anymore, and like just read the new things and keep going on service and stuff." And keep praying. And I was like, okay, I'll try. And I did try. I really did. I did not want to wake up. I did not want to realize that my whole life had been a lie and that I had given everything for nothing. Like to the
Yes, that's a great point. Those of us who wake up, Jehovah's Witnesses act like, well, you wanted to go chase
no.
the blah blah. No, it was traumatic to wake up for
Very.
most of us to realize that everything we had been taught was a lie. It was not a good feeling.
Yeah.
Uh,
And for me, I prayed so much. I was like, Jehovah, you need to prove to me that you are real and that this religion is true and that everything I saw is somehow not true. And that I'm in the right religion. Just prove it to me. Do something. And nothing happened. And I just found more and more proof that it was not true. And I was like, well, maybe Jehovah's not the true God. Maybe there's another God. So I just prayed to like whoever's out there, please. And nothing happened. And one thing that really made me realize that the Bible itself was not to be taken literally um, was something that I had been using all the time in service to prove that the Bible was true. Because when I was a kid, my mom could never explain why the Bible was true. But eventually, like reading the publications, I was like, oh, actually, there are these prophecies, and like Babylon was destroyed and never rebuilt, and no one lives in that area. It's in the middle of the desert, and there's nothing there, just ruins. And I would show that picture from the Bible Teach book to my students. I was like, you see, like this is proof that the Bible is true because these prophecies got true. Like yeah. So everything happened as it was written, and eventually, so I went on Google Maps. I found Babylon. I looked at it with the Google Street View, and I saw cars, roads, houses, people taking pictures. Um, just a normal town in that area with like a museum and everything. And of course, there were some ruins out there because, of course, it's and parking lots full of cars. Like, I was looking at that, I was like, oh my God, like, I could not believe it. I looked at the whole area like for like an hour or something. I was just looking at everything. I was so shocked. Like it's like my whole world like crumbled. Like everything I believed in was not true. And I was like, well, if this prophecy actually is not actually true as we've been told, then what else? And I just started researching a lot of stuff, and yeah. So
607 BCE.
oh yeah, that too. So yeah, I don't believe in the Bible or anything like that anymore.
So how did you actually leave then?
Okay, so uh, when we became a couple, me and the Dominican guy, um, it got serious pretty quickly, and we decided that we would tell our families. So I decided to tell my parents. So I went to my parents' house and I said, okay, I have something to tell you. I've been like going through stuff lately, and actually, I have to tell you that I don't believe that is the truth anymore. And now that I'm free from this, I can live my life and be my authentic self. And I have a boyfriend now. So, I don't know what I was expecting, but obviously it did not go well. My parents were very disappointed, and they just said that I was finding an excuse that I did not really believe that it was not the truth, but I was just taking that as an excuse because I wanted to sin. And that I was being manipulated by Satan and all that crap again. So, anyways, I left, and that was that. A few days later, knock on my door. The elders were here. I never gave them my address. Turns out Of course, as always. Oh, Patrick, we have heard some disturbing news about you. Like, I'm tired of hearing that from the elder. We just want to make sure if it's true. I'm like, well, I have nothing to say to you about my private life. And I just told them that. And they're like, well, we heard that you have a boyfriend and that you don't believe that we have the truth anymore. I said, yeah, but that, I'm not going to talk to you about it. And they're like, well, this is a very serious matter, you know, like we cannot just leave without doing anything. We need to do a judicial committee. And I said, I'm not going through that again. And this has nothing to do with you. It's my private life. And I'm not going to do it. And he said, well, the only other option is for you to write a letter of disassociation. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Goodbye. I closed the door. And I wrote my letter and I went to give it to that elder, which is weird because we used to be close friends. But yeah, the cult personality takes over. So I gave him the letter and he didn't even say anything to me. He was just like, ugh, like, you're disgusting. Like, he looked at me like I was like the worst person ever. And I felt free. And so that was in 2018, October, when I officially got out. And yeah, since then, so well, my parents don't have a relationship with me anymore. None of my JW family or old friends. When I sent my letter, I actually also at the same time I sent an email to everyone I knew, to all the JWs I knew everywhere in
That,
the world.
that's a long copy list
Well,
there.
mostly from my congregation, but some people that I was still in touch with. But the people that I was not in touch with, I just never mind. Um, so yeah, I just explained. I said, well, I just simply don't believe it's the truth anymore. I did some research and I realized that it's not a healthy place to be, and that's why I'm leaving. It's not because I'm getting disfellowshipped again. I'm leaving because I don't want, my conscience does not let me stay in this religion. So I said clearly that it was a conscience matter. I didn't get any response except from so the guy I used to be in love with when I was a teenager. Um, so he wrote back to me and he said, I'm very sad about this. I don't agree with what you're saying about the organization, but um, I always knew that you were gay and I always knew that you were in love with me. And that's why I pushed you away. And I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. And I always admired you for your courage because even though you're gay, you were still doing your best for all these years. And I'm sorry, but I have to say goodbye and we won't talk anymore. So he said something like that. And it really touched me. Um, I didn't have any feelings for him anymore, but still to have some kind of closure like that, it was really nice. And I really appreciated that he took the time to write back to me when no one else cared enough to do it.
It's kind of
So
a classy move, you
yeah,
know, to at least try to give you that in the end. He didn't just ignore you. Um,
yeah,
I know, you know, for myself, I sent goodbye letters to my family. My wife Jenny sent goodbye letters to hers. She never heard anything from anyone in her family. My mom at least did send me an email back that was, you know, probably about as good as what you could expect, and you know, a kind of a peace out on the whole situation. And you know, that was it. But at least I got that. It's hard, I think, when you send something like that out and get no response.
Yeah,
At least you had one person.
yeah. Even
Help.
my parents didn't reply to the email. I sent it to my parents too, and nothing. I was dead to them. I still am. Like I see them sometimes, um, for like if I like because I had some stuff of mine at their house, and some like a few times I had to pick some stuff up, and I felt like they were treating me like a distant relative that they just feel obligated to be polite to, but they don't really like that person. That's how I felt. So it's kind of awkward after everything. Like they defended me when I was unjustly disfellowshipped, and all that, and they were on my side for this whole time. But when just because I stopped believing, they just nothing mattered anymore. They threw me out of their life.
That is where the condition lies with most of our families. It's as long as you think and feel like they do, you're okay. Once you start to have thoughts and feelings outside of that, you're dead to them.
Yeah.
And it's just another absurd layer on a terrible, absurd cake,
Yeah.
that just um, it's so silly and petty and ridiculous. Uh, but they've made that decision, and there's not a lot we can do about it. But move on. So when was that again? That was 2018.
Yes. I so I was out officially in October 2018. I woke up in March 2018, so there were a few months
Okay,
between.
so you've had a couple years. What do you enjoy about your new life? What are you into? And what do you want to go do now that it's yours?
Yes. So yeah, it's very nice to be free, to be able to do what I want to do. And I actually have this LGBT pride bracelet that I wear. I've been wearing it since I left, as like a tribute to this this video that woke me up, uh, 2 years ago. Um, so yeah. Since then, I have, um, well, I went back to school first of all. So I'm a student now. I'm getting a college degree in social sciences. I'm starting my final semester this month, next week actually. um,
Congratulations.
and thank you. and and next year, so in September, I will start a bachelor's degree in psychology. So I'm very interested in psychology and a lot of things. I just love learning in general. As I always have, but I didn't have the opportunity to do much of that. But now I do. So I'm studying as much as I can. I still love languages. I still love traveling. Um, can't wait for the pandemic to be over to be able to travel again. Um, and yeah, it's just it's nice also to see that worldly people are not bad people. And at first, when I left, I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anyone. I reconnected with my cousin. So we were both very happy about that. She was so happy that I left, but also I told her everything, like about the witnesses, and she was shocked because she didn't know that it was a cult. And so I gave her a little bit of trauma, I guess, with that. But we're happy that we can see each other and talk freely now. And I've made friends at school, and I've dated a few guys, and it's just nice to be free to do things and just be myself and not feel bad for no reason anymore. So yeah, I don't
That's
know.
awesome. Anything going forward that you want?
Well, studying. um, I I think Well, I have been thinking about the meaning of my life because that's something that I kind of lost when I woke up, or I felt like I lost a meaning because back then I felt like the meaning of my life was to serve Jehovah, to help people come to Him, and to survive Armageddon and live forever. um, but when I lost all of that and I realized that wasn't true, I felt kind of empty. I felt like my life has no meaning. But I realized that I still do want to help people. That's still something that has not changed and it will never change. And that's a part of me. And I want to learn to grow as a person and to help people and to make the world a better place. And that's that's my goal. That's my purpose, I could say. And this time I can actually make a difference, not like when I was a JW and just doing nonsense. But so yeah, I'm excited to see what will happen in the future.
Oh, that's awesome. And here's a step in helping people. You're telling your story. You're being
Yeah.
open, honest, vulnerable. I'm sure that your story will help validate someone else out there that feels alone, or
Mhm.
that feels like their story, maybe isn't valid, or maybe they're struggling and they've been in some of these same situations and felt so alone. Um, you just helped somebody. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.